Low pressure is taking hold, dragging in some frontal systems, bringing in a squeeze in the isobars, so some strong winds and some outbreaks of rain. This lingers around northern parts of Wales, northern parts of England through much of the afternoon. It generally clears parts of Scotland, but plenty of blustery showers here and likely to see some disruption as a result of earlier rain across Scotland, where we have the amber warning issued. But across the far south and southeast, that's going to be the driest of the weather, but still plenty of cloud around, but largely mild across the south and southeast too. As we head into this evening, we'll still see longer spells of rain just to the north of Scotland, bringing in some snow across parts of Shetland, and fairly cloudy with some rain and drizzle to the south of this, similar across Northern Ireland too. And we'll continue to see those longer spells of rain across parts of Wales, northern and central parts of England. This could be heavy and rather persistent at times, and still staying largely dry across the far south and southeast. But as we head into the evening, it is going to remain unsettled if you are out and about celebrating New Year's. Still continuing to see outbreaks of rain across northern and central parts. Dry to the south, yes, but it is going to be fairly windy here, and we're going to see plenty of showers move through across Scotland. These falling as snow, mainly across hills, but also to lower levels too, and it is going to start to feel particularly chilly across northern areas too. Remaining slightly mild to the south, but through the day we'll start to see outbreaks of rain slowly creep their way in here, and it will start to turn chillier once this clears through too, with a very brisk northerly flow starting to cross the country to the north of this rain band. So bringing in some wintry showers and feeling very chilly in the wind too. Still slightly milder to the south, but it will turn chillier through the course of the afternoon.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could be joining the Great British Giveaway list of winners with your chance to grab a fantastic £50,000 in tax-free cash.
My name is Cliff.
And my name is Julie, and we won 25,000. I'd say don't hesitate, do it. If you're not in it, you've got no chance of winning it.
For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Lee Anderson's Real World, Fridays from 7 p.m.
So, how did you get into radio initially?
It's the old thing. You do discos.
Yeah.
Back in the days when you used to put needles on.
What sort of year we're talking about?
Oh, it was black and white.
Okay.
That's the closest you're going to get.
Beatles, Rolling Stones?
Yeah. Sort of later. Sort of a bit later than that, doing discos. But then you sort of do a tape. I did a tape for BBC Radio Manchester, the local BBC station, and just one off, got a copy of that, edit. Yeah. Naively thought, everybody's going to send a tape to Piccadilly, which was the Manchester station, which was 73. And instead of that, a couple of years later, I sent a tape to Radio City in Liverpool, not thinking that everybody in Liverpool's going to be sending a tape there. And just a guy just went, I'm too good for this, doing the overnights, walked out, and my tape was on the top of the pile. And I got a phone call on a Thursday night, Thursday, the 12th of February, 76. Can you do 2 till 6 in the morning on Radio City in Liverpool? I thought it was one of my pals.
And what was you talking about on that radio show?
It was an overnight programme, so it's music.
Yeah.
In those days, you didn't have much needle time, but clever devil here noticed that the BBC stuff was not needle time. Yeah. So I used to put like the Goons on and the Hancocks. So you've got half an hour, and me and the security guy, Bert, on the door. We're the only two in the building. Yeah. I used to get in my car, put the Goons on, get in my car, dash down to the pier head, get a bacon butty, listening to it all the time, hoping that the record's not stuck, and then dashing back.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon and a very, very happy New Year's Eve to you. Only one sleep until 2025, but still for today, it's 3 p.m. Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. There's been a furious backlash to London Mayor Sadiq Khan receiving a knighthood in the New Year's honours list, pointing to spiralling knife crime and net zero policies that have hammered the working classes. Has Khan been rewarded for failure? And with his no-nonsense approach, Reform MP Rupert Lowe has been heralded as 2024's rising star of British politics. On New Year's Eve, Rupert will look back on his banger of a year in politics and look ahead to what promises to be non-stop fireworks in 2025. And Nigel Farage gives his New Year's address from the birthplace of Winston Churchill. What can we expect in the coming year from Reform UK? And truly a story here to restore faith in humanity. Look at them, beautiful. On today's show, I'll be joined by two real-life Santa's little helpers, Charlie, 7, and his sister, Molly, age 4. This year, the inspiring brother and sister act decided to sell their old toys and donate their own Christmas gifts to a local children's hospice. What a wonderful story. That's all coming up in your next hour. And also, newly released National Archive documents have revealed that Tony Blair repeatedly ignored warnings from his cabinet that opening Britain to East Europe would lead to uncontrolled migration. Instead, Blair opened the floodgates and paved the way for Brexit. Did Blair betray Britain? Well, the show, always a pleasure to have your company. Now, New Year's wouldn't be New Year's without there being a big old hoo-ha about the New Year's honours list. But this year, more than a few eyebrows have been raised. Sadiq Khan, the godfather of ULEZ, the godfather, the overseer of spiralling knife crime in London. Many saying he's been rewarded for failure. What about Gareth Southgate? He didn't win anything. Yet he's won a gong today. Did he deserve it? All of his nonsense about taking the knee and Dear England, his letter about racism. He's a manager who brought politics into football. Should have been kicked out. Well, he's been rewarded. Let me know who you think should and perhaps shouldn't have got a New Year's gong by getting in touch. gbnews.com/your say. But now here's your headlines, and it's Sophia Wensler.
Patrick, thank you. Good afternoon. It's just gone 3 o'clock. These are your headlines. New Zealand has rung in the new year with a fireworks display in Auckland, closely followed by Australia, who celebrated with fireworks over Sydney Harbour. But as the world prepares to welcome in 2025, severe weather is set to hamper Britain's New Year's events. The Edinburgh Hogmanay celebrations have been cancelled due to weather conditions. Heavy rain and high winds are causing disruption in much of the country, with blizzards forecast in Scotland and widespread cancellations of New Year's Eve events. Almost every part of the UK is covered by at least one or multiple Met Office weather warnings. Fireworks displays in Newcastle's Quayside have been cancelled, while Blackpool and North Yorkshire are also reporting cancellations. Meanwhile, City Hall in London says they're monitoring weather conditions ahead of the capital's annual New Year's Eve fireworks display this evening. Former England football manager Gareth Southgate, actor Stephen Fry and gardener Alan Titchmarsh are among some of the famous names included on this year's New Year's honours list. The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, has also been knighted, sparking fury among some amid London's spiralling crime rate. Sir Keir Starmer has been accused of rewarding failure, as knife crime has increased in the capital by 50% since Khan took office in 2016. The Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp said Londoners would be furious. The London Mayor was also responsible for rolling out the controversial ULEZ scheme in Greater London, which critics say hit the poorest workers the hardest. Meanwhile, the newly appointed Sir Sadiq has said he was truly humbled to receive the honour. Nigel Farage has delivered his New Year's message from Blenheim Palace, the birthplace of Sir Winston Churchill. In his message to the nation, he speaks about why he jumped back into the political arena, becoming a grandfather, the optimism he has for the country, and his belief that Reform UK can make Britain great again. But he fears we've been let down by previous governments for decades.
You know, the fish rots from the head down. We have been appallingly led in this country now for several decades. We are in societal decline. We are in economic decline. Most people are getting poorer with every year that passes. We're losing any sense of national identity. And we're actually teaching kids at school that people like Winston Churchill, born in this palace, are bad people, and that our country's history is something to be ashamed of.
In other news, New Year's Eve revellers in Wales are being urged to drink sensibly to help the country's ambulance service, which has declared a critical incident after a huge increase in demand. The service said there were more than 340 calls waiting to be answered when the incident was declared last night. At the same time, more than half of the Trust's ambulance vehicles were waiting to hand over patients outside hospitals. Wayne Rooney has left his job as head coach of Championship strugglers Plymouth Argyle. Rooney and Plymouth have mutually agreed to part ways with immediate effect after a 9-game winless run. The 39-year-old former England captain oversaw just 4 league wins and suffered 13 defeats in 23 Championship games after taking charge of the Pilgrims in May. Now, teenage girls in the UK are more likely to get repeatedly drunk than their peers from almost anywhere else in Europe. That's according to a new study. Research by the OECD, cited in the Times newspaper, shows that only those in Hungary and Denmark outdrink British girls. The OECD report said that historically teenage boys drank more than girls, but the reverse was now true in 12 European countries. Experts say it could be down to a cultural shift. It is also thought that teenage girls are mirroring their parents as UK women binge drink more than their counterparts on the continent. And after 8 years in one of the longest and most bitter divorces in Hollywood history, Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie have reached a settlement. 49-year-old Jolie and 61-year-old Pitt were one of Hollywood's most prominent couples for 12 years. The 2 Oscar winners, dubbed Brangelina, have 6 children together. Jolie filed for divorce in 2016 following a private jet flight from Europe, during which she said Pitt was abusive towards her and their children. While Jolie's lawyers have said a divorce settlement has now been reached, it is unclear whether it will end a long-running legal battle between the pair over a French vineyard. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Sophia. Excellent as ever. Now, Reform MP Rupert Lowe has quickly risen to prominence, earning the title of 2024's Rising Star of British Politics. Known for his bold and outspoken views and his fearless stance on key issues, Rupert has become a standout figure in today's political landscape. And he joins me in a moment to reflect on what has been a landmark year in his political career and share his insights and predictions for 2025, a year that's already shaping up to be full of non-stop fireworks and high-stakes political drama. But first, Nigel Farage gave his New Year's address from the birthplace of Winston Churchill earlier today. Let's take a little look.
I got back involved with politics, took the leadership of Reform UK, and I made one big promise. I said in that general election, albeit with 4 weeks to go, we'd get millions of votes and we'd establish a bridgehead in Parliament. Well, that is what we have done. And I think everybody acknowledges that with just a handful of MPs, we've made a real impact over the course of these last 6 months. And everything we do is based on values. And those values are around the things that matter to us: family, community, and country. They're the things that got me back in politics.
Well, to look back on this year and to look forward into 2025, I'm now joined by the Reform UK MP for Great Yarmouth, Rupert Lowe. Rupert, a very happy new year to you. We're almost there, only one more sleep away. Can I begin by asking you there, Nigel Farage talks about getting that bridgehead, about the values of reform. Can I also ask you to share your experiences on what it's like to be in Parliament? You're certainly putting the cat amongst the pigeons. You're asking for data that they don't want to give away on immigration numbers, on crime by foreign nationality, on tax receipts, you name it. You're making a lot of enemies in all the... What you found in Parliament. Is it as chaotic as you expected?
Well, Martin, first of all, Happy New Year. It's been a pretty tough one. 2 elections and a new career at the age of 66 is a pretty testing time, but it's been interesting. As you quite rightly say, I think the key to this is good government is transparent government. And what I'm trying to do is use my position to get the data and then give it to people and let them decide, because after all, they're the master. Parliament's the servant. And if they can see that things aren't right through the data, then they can make their own judgments at the next ballot box. So I think that's all I'm trying to do. I don't think it's anything particularly special. With regard to Nigel's address, I think it's from a fantastically historic place, Blenheim. I was there just before Christmas, and it is, if you like, totemic of this country. It's got huge history. Obviously, it's links with Winston Churchill, who's one of my political heroes, along with Elizabeth I. And I think Nigel made some very powerful points. We've now, as a group of 5 MPs, built the bridgehead. I played my part in encouraging Nigel to come back. I think it was very important that we brought the Messiah back. He played a big role in the European Parliament, following on from Sir James Goldsmith, who I think often gets less credit than he deserves for his 1997 referendum party, which actually was the reason why the 3 major parties promised the referendum on our membership of the EU in the first place. But I think it's a team effort now, and if reform's going to mature, Nigel at the head, we need a group of people, like-minded people to whom authority and power is delegated to reform what is a 2-party system, Martin, that's failing. It's quite clear to me that the 2 cheeks of the same backside, as George Galloway described them. It's a very weak gene pool. I've been suffering from a terrible cold over Christmas. Parliament is a bit like a black hole. I won't liken it to the black hole of Calcutta. It's not quite that bad, but 650 people like myself packed into a very tight space with very little circulation of air. It's like a sort of a fest for viruses. And it definitely is a building which needs some updating. Not just in terms of structure, but in terms of the people who inhabit it. So it's been a fascinating experience, and I'm very pleased and proud that you say I'm one of the rising stars. I don't think of myself as that. I think of myself as just trying to bring some common sense back to the UK.
What do you think it is specifically that they're so afraid of when, for example, I mean, on this show, I've tried to get data in terms of crime type by nationality, data that's readily available in Denmark, readily available in the Netherlands, data that came out from the German federal government. Germany, the liberal Germany, 63% of all benefit recipients are of foreign origin, either born abroad or the children of those born abroad. When we have that data, it allows us to make common sense decisions about potentially who we allow into our country. Do we want more of this nationality? Do we want more of that nationality? Should we be deporting more of these people? Yet they won't give the data out. Do you think they're not recording this data, which is gross incompetence, or they're trying to cover it up, which actually is more sinister?
Well, that's a question. It's an interesting question, Martin. Very well put. And the more I ask these questions, what I ask myself is, do those ill-experienced front bench ministers actually know, first of all, what we're talking about, and are they aware of this data? Because I see their faces. They're actually, when we do get the data, and as you quite rightly say, I think it is there if they care to collect it. I mean, we all have to fill in multiple forms now, and there's all sorts of data collection. I think what's happening in the world is through regulation, we've effectively got rampant socialism, almost Marxism. It's sort of tying the individual down and constraining what I call the 2 greatest economies in the world. The Anglo-Saxon individualism is being curbed. I question whether, I think the civil service know the numbers. Do the ministers know the numbers? And this is the real key issue, I think, which is worrying, is I don't think if you've got such weak ministers, they cannot hold the civil service to account. And they're called the civil service for a reason. They're supposed to be serving the people. The problem is that the servant has become the master. And without strong leadership from ministers, you will continue to see a growth in the size of a failing, inefficient civil service. Just look at the liability we've got, which is off balance sheet for the civil service pensions, Martin, which is heading for £3 trillion. And in the end, I'm sorry to say that governments have a bad track record of cheating on their people, either through inflation or through coin clipping or whatever else. So when they simply get bills they can't afford, they tend to inflate them away, and they tend to rob aspirant middle-class people who've been very prudent and saved their money. So I think it's a case of a malign civil service that is not doing its job, and it's misinforming incompetent government ministers who aren't holding them to account.
Can I ask you about the year ahead? There was a poll out at the weekend predicting that the Labour Party would lose 200 seats if an election were held now. Sir Keir Starmer has all the popularity of a lead balloon at the moment. Reform seems to be doing well, but the data says 72 seats if that cuts through. Still not enough to make that tipping point. But how big is the challenge ahead? Do you think the entire system is rigged against small parties, or is this a battle that could be historically won, as we saw like 100 years ago with the Liberal Democrats breaking through against Labour?
I think we're breaking through, Martin. I don't trust the polls totally. I like the calculator, which shows effectively if we get to 31% of the vote, we go over that, we start to look like we can form, under first past the post, an overall majority. Reform must have an overall majority, or it can't do what's necessary to reform the country. I'm full of admiration for Javier Milei, who actually responded to one of my tweets himself the other day, which was fantastic. He's showing the world what happens when you try and reverse 100 years of rampant socialism. And Argentina is now hopefully going to be on the upward curve. I think she's certainly showing signs of it. Certainly looking at the share price of her bank stocks and everything else, she's starting to show signs that she's returning to some form of common sense. So I think this year we are breaking through. I think we can deliver more than 31%. I voted for first past the post, even though my instincts are that long-term, maybe proportional representation is fairer. But we need, if this country is going to save itself, Martin, it's got to have a majority for reform who are effectively a party from outside the existing political establishment, who won't be frightened to take the tough decisions. And trust me, they are going to be really tough. And it's not necessarily going to be a great time for the British people, but I think they know that. I think a bit like Winston Churchill promised people a pretty tough time when he told us all to keep buggering on during the war. I don't promise people a great time, but I promise them a much fairer, common sense way of life, which I think we're all used to.
OK, Rupert Lowe, we have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us on the show today, and a very happy new year to you, sir. Thank you, all the best. Cheers. Now, if you didn't get everything on your Christmas list this year, how about 50 grand in tax-free moolah for the new year? It really could be all yours in our biggest ever Great British Giveaway. Here's the details that you need to enter.
There's still plenty of time to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize ever, an incredible £50,000. What would you spend £50,000 on in the coming year? Spectacular holidays, a brand new car, home improvements, or maybe you'd just like to save it for a special occasion? For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Best of British with that. Now, still to come, will this government ever be able to stop the boats? I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's News Channel.
Thank you, Britain.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for subscribing.
Thank you for your support.
It's you that make us the People's Channel.
As we reflect on our journey so far, we're filled with immense gratitude.
You mean the world to us. We couldn't have reached this point without you.
As a very special thank you, we are giving you the chance to win one of 50 GB News thank you boxes. They're worth £50 each.
For full terms and conditions, and to enter, just go to gbnews.com/thank you.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
What do you think?
Morning. I think we have failed young drivers as a society, and we need to train them better and train them earlier. I think that the idea of stopping them carrying passengers for 6 months is a good idea because you've got peer pressure within a car. So yes, but I think graduated licenses are really difficult. You've got what we call the 3 E's, which is education, educating kids to drive earlier, engineering, which is making roads better and safer, and then comes enforcement at the end of it. So I think we're failing in these two first ones, the education and the enforcement. I put my kids, all 3 of them, through a thing called Young Driver, which allows under 17s to drive on private land with ADI instructors and learn the craft of driving and all the below the dashboard stuff and hazard awareness long before they try and do this very compressed period of time to learn about driving. I think we're failing them. So I want to see it in schools, and I want to see them being taught much, much earlier.
Nobody's actually pointing the finger of blame, I think, at the young driver, but maybe young drivers don't understand how different it is. You feel you can drive, you've passed your test, and then a load of your friends get in the back, and suddenly the mood is different, the pressure on you as a driver is very different, showing off, just larking around and having a great time. Aisha, how do you feel about the fact that clearly young drivers do need to be protected almost from themselves, don't they?
Well, I do agree with some of what Quentin has just said, especially about starting early and especially about getting young people used to the dangers of being on the road.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back. 3:22 on New Year's Eve with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, GB News has been told that the government will never solve the small boats crisis unless it brings in an effective deterrent, as the number of illegal migrants who crossed the Channel this year reached an astonishing 37,000. That's 25% higher than last year's total. Our Home and Security Editor Mark White sat down with the former head of the UK Border Force, Tony Smith, who told us that more needs to be done to put an end to this ongoing crisis.
The best tactics are disruption. The criminal justice system does not work well, in my experience, with international organised crime. The best you can really hope for is to disrupt the gangs, take their money off them, take them out of the business. Bringing people into the criminal justice system is really quite difficult to do. So, I mean, I think there has been an uptick in activity. I think, the outreach to other countries, other European countries and beyond is important. But this is international organised crime, so it's really difficult, for a UK agency, be that the new Border Security Council, the National Crime Agency, to be able to smash the gangs on their own. They need the cooperation of the Europeans, of the source and transit countries, so there's a really big overseas outreach element that's required if we're going to make significant progress into this industry. I think it's right that the government are talking to source and transit countries. That is a key objective, and I think that will help in disrupting the international organised crime gangs, but it's not a panacea. It's a lot of work to get an agreement with a single country on returns, because there's usually something in it for them. So I'll be really interested to see how the government gets on in getting those kinds of agreements. And there's a lot of countries out there where the migrants are coming through, be they source or transit countries. So it's quite a big undertaking for them. I think the EU countries, many of the member states, are now moving to the right on immigration. They are concerned, their communities are concerned about the levels, because they are now doing interdictions on the high seas between, you know, places like Libya and Italy, which wasn't the case a couple of years ago. So I think the mood music is changing a little bit on how they patrol their external frontier. But we need to remember there's a huge number of migrants, asylum seekers already in the EU who'd very much like to come here. What I haven't seen is a real deterrent. The only real change we've seen from this government is the abolition of the Rwanda scheme, which would have said to people, look, I'm sorry, we're not going to consider your asylum application or your human rights application in this country. You can go to Rwanda for that. I thought that was a really bold attempt by the last government, although they never got anywhere with it because of continual legal challenges over a great many years to thwart it. I thought that was the boldest attempt since Australia to try and set up an interdiction policy, which would have been a deterrent and would have made people perhaps who are already in a safe country think twice about making that perilous journey.
Well, can anybody stop the boats, or like King Canute, is it a tide that's simply unstoppable? Well, joining me now to discuss this in the studio is my wonderful New Year's Eve panel. It's political commentator Chloe Dobbs and also the trade unionist Andy Twelves. Chloe and Andy, welcome to the show. Andy, I'm going to start with you. To be fair, Rishi Sunak promised to stop the boats. He couldn't do it. Yvette Cooper, Sir Keir Starmer are saying they're going to smash the gangs. The gangs aren't getting the memo. The numbers are going through the roof. Can anybody in this government do anything to stem this tide? It's dividing the country, and the polling is showing it's making Labour go into freefall.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are other issues that are contributing to Labour's polling. I mean, it's a disaster, really, in the polls. Obviously, it's 6 months after a general election, so polls aren't the end of the world. But, I mean, Rishi Sunak was in office for, what, a year, almost 2 years. Liz Truss was in office for 3 weeks. Boris was in office for about 2 years. None of them managed to stop the boats. Keir Starmer's been in for, what, not even 6 months yet, 5 months? And out of that time, he's had most of the summer off of Parliament sitting. So he's not actually had that much time to push through legislation to combat the boats. So I think, this time next year, I think would be a fair point to go, has he failed or has he succeeded?
But it's getting worse. The biggest Christmas on record. There are 1,485 arrivals in 4 days. Merry Christmas, Mr Macron. Yeah. The point is, whatever Labour is saying about smashing the gangs, the point made in that clip there, that video, there is simply no deterrent. In fact, there's ample reward, accommodation, benefits, heating, food, small chance of being returned. And so long as that continues, we're in a death spiral.
Yeah, I mean, but realistically, the Tories didn't have a deterrent. Labour have come in with fresh ideas.
Rwanda, but Rwanda
stopped it. Rwanda that would have sent, 200 people? I mean, that's not even as many people that are coming across a day. I mean, let's not pretend Rwanda was this great deterrent. It really, really wasn't. People were still coming across whilst the Rwanda plan was active. Nobody actually went to Rwanda. But
there were loads of migrants in Calais saying that they were waiting for Keir Starmer to get into power because they were worried about Rwanda. Those of us who knew...
I thought they didn't speak English. I thought these refugees, these migrants didn't speak English.
You have translators.
The translators have translated this conversation and fed it exclusively
to so you're suggesting
GBNews.
all those translators are just liars and translated it incorrectly?
I don't think I've seen any verified source of this being true. I think it's bizarre Twitter accounts.
And you saw videos of them coming onto the shores after Keir Starmer came into power. We thank you, Keir Starmer. We love you.
I think you might have been fake news there, Chloe. Those videos weren't real. Those videos weren't real.
What, AI generated were?
Well, no, it was just someone dubbing it. It was someone voice dubbing it.
Absolutely full of rubbish, Andy.
On a serious point, back onto the message. So whatever message in the Labour Party is standing out, the people smugglers aren't getting the memo. The numbers are getting worse. And I guess my point is, Chloe, can Sir Keir Starmer stem the tide? Can Yvette Cooper smash the gangs? Or is it just inexorably going to get worse and therefore drag perhaps a new political player into the fray, such as Nigel Farage?
I don't think you're ever going to live in a world where the number coming across it crosses zero. You're always going to have some people coming into the country illegally. But I think that if they had the willpower, and both the Tories and the Labour Party don't have the willpower, for example, to turn the boats around in the Channel, they think that would be too controversial. controversial. They're not willing to do it. That absolutely would help stop the boats.
I think they should do it. I mean, Australia did that, Operation Sovereign Borders, and it worked.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just getting absolutely out of hand. Now, it's a very complicated issue. They may need to do more things on improving legal routes, for example. It is difficult with the gangs because one of them, you get rid of one gang, another gang emerges, right? And also, I think we've been really naive to hand the French a ton of money and just trust them to stop the boats from coming across. And then we're happy when they send us the odd video of them slashing a dinghy. But the rest of the time, I mean, just put yourself in the shoes of the French. They want them to come to Britain, so it's not their problem. When we're not looking, they want them to get on those dinghies and on those lorries. And they all take bribes. You know, these trips across, they cost thousands, not because the mafia, they all just want to put it all in their pocket. They're using those thousands to bribe everybody all the way up the ladder, all the way up to EU officials to make sure that the border force, the police, EU officials, they all turn a blind eye to it. So it's very complicated. And we've really got to hold the French to account and say, you're not having a single penny from us unless you actually do something about this.
And that's the point, isn't it, Andy? That won't happen. It'll be a cold day in hell before Sir Keir Starmer reads the riot act to Brussels, also Emmanuel Macron. He isn't a Donald Trump. He isn't even a Nigel Farage, and that's the problem. So long as we're seeing as a soft touch, the boats will continue to arrive. We can't stop the gangs anymore. We can stop the war on drugs.
I mean, that's this bold allegation of corruption just there, saying that everyone's paid off. I'm not sure how true that is. But, I mean, realistically, you say, about the willpower, what would Farage do differently? What would Farage do? I don't know.
Well, I mean,
how will he stop it?
He's not here to answer, but what I would say from what I've read is he said he would intercept boats and return them. Now, that would cause a standoff with the French, invariably. Perhaps he thinks...
So he wants to cause a military incident in the middle of the channel?
Well, what does he...
That's not good. That's not good. You can't do that.
£500 million a year to see the numbers increasing isn't working. It's the definition of insanity to repeat the same thing and expect a different outcome. Perhaps it's time to go a bit more nuclear.
You can't just send the military into the channel. You can't just make a standoff.
Well, the Australians did that. The Italians did that.
Yeah,
the Italians send their navy to patrol the coast of Libya. It's worked.
It's a different situation. It is a complete. They're not just there to patrol against migrants on the coast of Libya.
Back to Libya.
But it's not. They're not there for that. They're against pirates. They're not. There's not pirates in the English Channel.
But you asked, will they deploy the military?
You can't do that. But you can't do that. You can't do that, though. You can't do that. You can't just cause military incidents in the middle of the channel.
Why not?
That's not realistic.
Perhaps if we had politicians with the guts to do it, Chloe, then we might see...
You can't just do that.
We invariably would see a huge political standoff. Perhaps that's what it's going to take.
I think I don't think you're going to have a military standoff in the middle of the channel.
If you send the Royal Navy into the channel,
you'll probably have some legal battles to get there. I'm not a lawyer, but Richard Tice says that he has read through all the legislation on this, and it's very clear that we are legally able to take the boats back.
And it was Labour Party policy in the past to put the Royal Navy in the Channel, to patrol the Channel.
The Labour Party isn't perfect. Nobody's perfect. They've had flawed policies many times.
It's been proposed before, it's been done before, it's been done in other countries before, and it's been effective before. But my point is, I don't think we've got the politicians with the guts to do that. But look, thank you very much. We'll have more of you throughout today's show. Love it. That's Chloe Dobbs and, of course, Andy Twells. Now, lots more still to come to you now, 4 o'clock, including as private schools brace themselves for the upcoming VAT rise next week. In fact, it's tomorrow. I'll be speaking to a head teacher for his thoughts. That's next. Now you can join GB News for the ultimate countdown to 2025 later on this evening. Patrick, Bev, Emily, Darren and Ben will all be together for a very, very special show. It's called GB News New Year's Live from 10 p.m. tonight. And don't miss it. But first, here's your headlines, and it's Sophia Wensler.
Martin, thank you. Your headlines at 3:33. Japan, Australia and New Zealand have all rung in the new year with celebrations and firework displays. But as the world prepares to welcome in 2025, severe weather is set to hamper Britain's New Year's events. The Edinburgh Hogmanay celebrations have been cancelled due to weather conditions. Heavy rain and high winds are causing disruption in much of the country, with blizzards forecast in Scotland and widespread cancellations of New Year's Eve events. Almost every part of the UK is covered in at least one or multiple Met Office weather warnings. Fireworks displays in Newcastle's quayside have been cancelled, while Blackpool and North Yorkshire are also reporting cancellations. Meanwhile, City Hall in London says they're monitoring weather conditions ahead of the capital's annual New Year's Eve fireworks display this evening. Former England football manager Gareth Southgate, actor Stephen Fry and gardener Alan Titchmarsh are among some of the famous names included on this year's New Year's honours list. The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, has also been knighted, sparking fury among some amid London's spiralling crime rate. Sir Keir Starmer has been accused of rewarding failure as knife crime has increased in the capital by 50% since Khan took office in 2016. The Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp, said Londoners would be furious. The London Mayor was also responsible for rolling out the controversial ULEZ scheme in Greater London, which critics say hit the poorest workers the hardest. Meanwhile, the newly appointed Sir Sadiq said he was truly humbled to receive the honour. Tony Blair's Labour government pushed on with plans to open UK borders to Eastern Europe despite mounting concerns from senior ministers. That's according to newly released official files. The National Archives has published Cabinet Office files from 2003 to 2004, when Tony Blair was Prime Minister. The documents revealed the issue of immigration was top of the agenda, the senior ministers urging the then Prime Minister to delay granting employment rights to Eastern and Central European workers when the EU expanded in 2004. But Mr Blair's government went ahead with plans despite the warnings. Wayne Rooney has left his job as head coach of Championship strugglers Plymouth Argyle. Rooney and Plymouth have mutually agreed to part ways with immediate effect after a 9-game winless run. The 39-year-old former England captain oversaw just 4 league wins and suffered 13 defeats in 23 championship games after taking charge of the Pilgrims in May. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head towards the new year, it's going to be unsettled, outbreaks of rain and snow, very windy at times with multiple Met Office warnings enforced for the New Year's period. And it's all because we've got low pressure generally dominating the weather, bringing in some frontal systems, a squeeze in the isobars, so outbreaks of rain, some windy weather and also some snow, particularly across the far north of Scotland, particularly the Shetland Islands, where there is a Met Office warning enforced for outbreaks of snow. This becoming more prominent towards the early hours of the morning with a mix of some showers too. And then across parts of Wales, northern parts of England, some heavy and quite persistent outbreaks of rain at times too. And largely dry to the far south, but plenty of cloud. And we will start to see winds pick up during the early hours of the morning too. So to start the new year then across Scotland, unsettled, plenty of showers feeding through, quite blustery at times, and also a risk of snow and ice, mainly across high ground, but also to lower levels too. We may start to see some brighter weather across Northern Ireland, but can't rule out some showers, particularly around coasts, and a very wet start across Wales, northern and central parts of England. This rain quite heavy and persistent at times still. We'll see the driest of the weather across the far southeast, but eventually these outbreaks of rain will slowly sink towards the southeast also, and very strong blustery winds, particularly around coast, but even inland areas seeing some quite gusty weather. And we may start to see some sunshine build through the day to the north of these outbreaks of rain, but plenty of showers once again falling as snow at times, and feeling very cold here too, slightly milder to the south, but still a chillier day on offer compared to what it was today. Into the evening, we'll eventually say goodbye to these outbreaks of rain. We'll see plenty of clear spells, but also wintry showers, and likely to wake up to quite a widespread sharp frost too. And into the outlook, it remains cold. There'll be more sunshine around, yes, but a risk of snow showers and a risk of frost and ice too.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm John Vincent. Traffic issues on the M6 northbound. Firstly, in Cheshire, lanes 1 and 2 are closed for an overturned lorry between junction 17 Sandbach heading towards 18 for Middlewich. And further north on the M6 northbound, there's 2 lanes closed for an accident between junction 37 Kendal and 38 for T-Bay. Slow traffic on the M11 northbound in Essex. It's due to an earlier accident near junction 6 for the M25, although the vehicles have been removed off the main carriageway. Queues for the the M27 westbound in Hampshire. The entry slip road is partially blocked due to an accident at Junction 5, Southampton Airport. And we're seeing queues in Rainham in London. The A1306 New Road is closed in both directions between Marsh Way and Dover's Corner for a building fire. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Welcome back. Your time is 3:39 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, the average cost of private school fees has risen to £18,000 a year as schools brace themselves for the upcoming VAT rise, which will come into force on Wednesday. However, Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, has doubled down ahead of the tax rises, insisting that middle-class parents support the tax rise as private schools are out of reach for the vast majority of people. I'm joined now by the Executive Head of St Thomas, the Apostle School in London, Serge Sefai. Serge, welcome to the show. Always a pleasure to have your company and a very happy New Year's to you. So, the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, has said that these tax breaks for private schools are a luxury that we cannot afford. Priti Patel has called this more gaslighting from a socialist government. Where do you stand on this issue?
Well, to be honest, I'm not quite sure where I stand. Things keep changing all the time. Information we get keeps changing all the time. At one point, it was mooted that actually the VAT couldn't be collected in any case. As a head teacher, obviously, I'd love to have more money to spend, but is any of this money actually going to filter through in a meaningful way to the state sector? But in between it all, Martin, I'm afraid to say it's about time we depoliticised education, full stop. You know, this political football that and it's not just education, of course. I think a few other areas, you need to plan it properly. You need to think about it carefully, because in between all of this wrangling and people polarising their positions, you've got kids who might well have to leave their schools halfway through their time. It's also been introduced in the middle of a school year, which I never think is fair. I don't think that's right. You've got children yourself, I know that. The idea that kids have to move schools, no one's talking about that. It's all politics, one-upmanship, etc. Maybe the time has come. Obviously, COVID is so clear in my mind, where once again, people forgot about the impact of the decisions they make. And I don't know where the forward planning is. I don't know who their advisors are, but I wish they talked to someone in education so they could realise the impact that it has on kids. And that's where I'm coming from and would do, along with a lot of other teachers and parents, to be honest. What about the effect on kids here? And let's depoliticise it as soon as possible. Yep. Let's get cross-party agreement. Let's talk to people who know what they're talking about, and let's move forward properly.
So, you know, full disclosure, I went to what you'd call, I guess, a bit of a bucket comprehensive, never did me any harm. My two kids, aged 15 and 10, they go to state schools and they absolutely love them. But I've also done a lot of work in private schools and I think they're amazing, you know, if you can afford them. And one thing I'm struck by is that private schools, the length and breadth of Britain could be filled with overseas students paying top whack at the drop of a hat. And what I fear is that hard-working, aspirational, middle-class parents who put everything into their kids' education, by the way, oftentimes that's a lot of hard-working ethnic minorities, they'll be squeezed out by the rich people. They won't care about 20% VAT, and then those kids will be dumped into state schools anyway. And there goes the money, because they're going to have to get more teachers and spend more money on the comms. Am I wrong in saying this is kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul?
No, but once again, you've just expressed a common-sense attitude to this problem. Now, if people want to pay twice, and give their kids a leg up, the idea of a level playing field, well, forget about that. It doesn't exist in our country and maybe anywhere in the world. You know, you've got different parents. People are going to prioritise things differently. If we're going to stop private schools, then we have to stop private medicine and a whole load of other things too. I mean, what you've just said is absolutely right. In terms of a state service system that I've been involved in 45 years, just like you, secondary modern kid, etc. It's a great system in our country, but it's been ruined. We've all talked about the crumbling schools, etc. You heard the concrete stuff not long ago. That's what they should be thinking of. You know, if parents want to make sacrifices in order to give their kids a leg up, who am I? Who are you? Who's anyone to stop them using their money as they wish? But I think you have a complicated system. People are trying to make it a left and right matter. I don't think it is that, especially when kids are in the middle. Time to get adults in the room with a bit of common sense, with people who know what they're doing, and rethink it. Let's see what the actual benefits are in the end. Because if there's no benefits to it, and I have to say, I'm suspicious of that. I don't know how much money is going to end up in my school to be able to buy. And by the way, this idea is going to pay for so many teachers. They aren't out there. They are not out there. You know, that's where you want the money. We need to train teachers. We need to make teaching a better profession that is more highly thought of. Then maybe you can afford to pay them. But you've made a good point. All I'm saying is, someone, please put the kids first and start making sensible decisions and plan ahead.
Serge Tefai, we can totally agree, mate. Common sense there, mainlining. Thank you very much for coming on the show today. And there you go. Have a great New Year's Eve. Thanks very much for coming on the show today. Cheers, mate. Now for In Search of some winter sun this year, and who can blame you with the weather we've got in Blighty? Well, here is the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, welcome to your latest winter sun forecast. Well, as we see out 2024, it's going to remain fairly unsettled for parts of Cyprus and Greece. This area of cloud and rain continues to linger here. But for much of Italy, Spain and Portugal, a fairly quiet couple of days with some late winter sunshine here. A few showers for Madeira, maybe just creeping into Canaries. But as we approach New Year's Day itself, it should be fairly fine and dry across the Canaries.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Now, new release National Archive documents have revealed that Tony Blair repeatedly ignored warnings from his top brass in his cabinet that opening Britain to East Europe would lead, guess what, to uncontrolled immigration. And he opened the floodgates and paved the way for Brexit. Here's the question. Did Tony Blair betray Britain? That's next.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Recruiters are warning that if you're not tech savvy, you could be missing out with your CV failing to make it through an AI-powered sifting process. So we've gone from sort of computer says no HR people ticking boxes to AI, right? Is that right?
Yes, well, this applies once you're in the job as well, as a recent report revealed that employees expect AI will manage an average of a third of their tasks within the next 12 months. Well, joining us now to discuss this is Cosmo Curry, founder of Van Kuysen, a leading company in technology recruitment.
Morning, Cosmo.
Morning. Good morning. Well, yeah, thank you for joining us. It's very interesting, isn't it? Because AI is, of course, on the rise, and now in the workplace and in universities and things. Another article came to mind. There was a student recently, I think it was in the news just the other day, that got in trouble for using AI. So there's, you know, for exam purposes and essays. So there's lots of different ways that it can be a good thing and a bad thing. But you're, of course, here to talk about the ways in which AI is a good thing within the workplace.
Absolutely. I mean, AI is here to stay, for sure. And we're seeing this rise of people using it in such a clever format. And the other side of it is also we're seeing people who are using it and during the process of that, they are losing their character. We're losing the actual insight into the individual behind that. And so we've kind of got this kind of mix. And I think AI is phenomenal when you're looking at it from a point of view of optimization, point of view of speed, getting results. But I think we have to remember that, you know, the fundamental of recruitment is people. And we cannot substitute the people, the personal aspect, by replacing that with AI.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 3:49 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, newly released National Archive documents have revealed that Tony Blair repeatedly ignored warnings from his cabinet about the risks of opening Britain's borders to East Europe. But Blair pressed ahead anyway, effectively opening the floodgates that arguably helped to pave the way for the public discontent that led to Brexit. Here's one for you. Is Tony Blair the original Brexiteer? Well, join me now as my panel for New Year's Eve. That's political commentator Chloe Dobbs and the trade unionist Andy Twelves. Welcome back, guys. I'm going to start with you this time, Chloe. A lot of people that contacted me over the years have said when the borders were open to the G8 countries and all of those cheap electricians, builders, lorry drivers, factory workers, bricklayers came in, it priced the Brits out of the job market and they started to have an awakening that Blair was betraying Britain. What say you?
I think that it was a betrayal to Britain, and I used to give him benefit of the doubt because economists over the years have generally all said immigration is great for the economy, and I thought that's probably all he knew at the time, is the reports coming from economists. He didn't know the trouble it would cause. But now that we hear that we had John Prescott and Jack Straw saying, please, Tony, change your mind about this is going to be a bad idea, it sounds like he just was not listening to the warning signs, and he could have done something about this, but he didn't. And sure, when he left office, the net migration was at about 250,000 a year, which is much lower than the nearly 1 million a year that we've just found out that in the latest figures. So it's the Tories are responsible as well for not changing track after Blair, but he really started this mass migration movement.
And Andy, isn't that the point? His own cabinet here will warn him. There were numerous impact assessment documents at the time warning about the effect on the job market, on social services, on the dentistry, GPs, everything we talk about all the time now. Blair was warned about. He simply chose to disavow those warnings, and he got us into a right old pickle.
Yeah, but, I mean, let's not act like life under Blair wasn't pretty good domestically. Obviously, Iraq was awful, and, you know, let's just put that to a side for a moment. I mean, people were able to get a GP appointment almost immediately. Social services were working. The economy was pretty good. I mean, you know, you look at post-Brexit, the construction industry still hasn't recovered from the amount of Eastern Europeans that left after Brexit because Blair brought them in. They were really supporting and really holding up that part of the economy. I mean, let's not pretend that this wasn't a good thing.
But, you know,
this was a good thing.
The Labour Party used to care about well-paid jobs for working-class Brits. This reversed that.
Oh, no, I think...
At a stroke.
That's not really true at all. I think if you look at the way that the damage that the Thatcher and Major governments did to the industrialised communities in the Midlands, and
Blair opened the borders to cheap labour.
That's what killed the well-paid working-class jobs. Let's not pretend. Right, it was the Thatcher Major governments that killed the well-paid working-class jobs in this country. The Eastern Europeans came in, they had services that British people weren't willing to provide, and they supported the economy.
Politicians will go for mass migration, even if they claim in their manifesto pledges that they're not going to. They'll go for it over and over again because it's a very quick fix to the productivity problems and whatnot that we have in this country. I think that we would have gone down a very different track on migration if we looked at GDP per capita rather than just GDP. Because although they're like, oh, great, it grows the economy and we can say we've grown the economy this many % each year, if you actually look at GDP per capita, we're getting poorer if you look on a per-head basis in this country.
And Andy, it must stick in your craw when I say I think Tony Blair was one of the original gangster Brexiteers. He gave people a taste for kicking back against his uncontrolled immigration.
I think you know, calling Tony Blair the original Brexiteer is an insult to Brexiteers. You know, I think that's absolutely outrageous. I mean, you know, I appreciate the kind of irony of your point, but I think I do fundamentally disagree with it. The man loves Europe. OK, we have to leave it there. Thank you very much, Andy Twelves and Chloe Dobbs. Now, still to come. Any moment now, Hong Kong will be welcoming in the new year. Set to be stunning fireworks on the way with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News. Now, here's your weather with Honor Krizik.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head towards the new year, it's going to be unsettled, outbreaks of rain and snow, very windy at times with multiple Met Office warnings enforced for the New Year's period. And it's all because we've got low pressure generally dominating the weather, bringing in some frontal systems, a squeeze in the isobars, so outbreaks of rain, some windy weather and also some snow, particularly across the far north of Scotland, particularly the Shetland Islands, where there is a Met Office warning in force for outbreaks of snow. This becoming more prominent towards the early hours of the morning with a mix of some showers too. And then across parts of Wales, northern parts of England, some heavy and quite persistent outbreaks of rain at times too. And largely dry to the far south, but plenty of cloud. And we will start to see winds pick up during the early hours of the morning too. So to start the new year then, across Scotland, unsettled, plenty of showers feeding through, quite blustery at times, and also a risk of snow and ice, mainly across high ground, but also to lower levels too. We may start to see some brighter weather across Northern Ireland, but can't rule out some showers, particularly around coasts, and a very wet start across Wales, northern and central parts of England. This rain quite heavy and persistent at times still. We'll see the driest of the weather across the far southeast, but eventually these outbreaks of rain will slowly sink towards the southeast also, and very strong blustery winds, particularly around coast, but even inland areas seeing some quite gusty weather. And we may start to see some sunshine build through the day to the north of these outbreaks of rain, but plenty of showers once again falling as snow at times, and feeling very cold here too, slightly milder to the south, but still a chillier day on offer compared to what it was today. Into the evening, we'll eventually say goodbye to these outbreaks of rain. We'll see plenty of clear spells, but also wintry showers, and likely to wake up to quite a widespread sharp frost too. And into the outlook, it remains cold. There'll be more sunshine around, yes, but a risk of snow showers and a risk of frost and ice too.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm John Vincent. Long delays on the M6 northbound in Cheshire. Lanes 1 and 2 are closed for an overturned lorry heading up towards junction 18 Middlewich. The queues are heading back beyond junction 17 Sandbach. In County Durham, the A1M northbound is partially blocked due to an accident between junction 60 Bradbury and 61 for Bowburn. In Rainham in London, the A1306 New Road is closed in both directions between Marshway and Dover's Corner for a building fire. In Surrey, we're seeing queuing traffic on the A23 Brighton Road in both directions in Salfords. It's all due to roadworks near the Premier Inn. And we're also seeing slow traffic in Somerset on the A39 southbound in Marksbury, again in roadworks at Church Farm Close. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
There's still plenty of time to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize ever, an incredible £50,000. What would you spend £50,000 on in the coming year? Spectacular holidays, a brand new car, home improvements, or maybe you'd just like to save it for a special occasion? For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Thank you, Britain.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for subscribing.
Thank you for your support.
It's you that make us the People's Channel.
As we reflect on our journey so far, we're filled with immense gratitude.
You mean the world to us. We couldn't have reached this point without you.
As a very special thank you, we are giving you the chance to win one of 50 GB News thank you boxes. They're worth £50 each.
For full terms and conditions, and to enter, just go to gbnews.com/thank you.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Very good afternoon to you and a very, very happy New Year's Eve. And it's 4 p.m. Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting live all across the UK. Now, Happy New Year to everybody in Hong Kong. It's just turned midnight there. Welcome to 2025. As you can see, as well as Hong Kong, Taiwan are also welcoming in 2025 with a magnificent display of fireworks you can see on your screens right now. The big bangers are going off across Taiwan. There you go, that's the countdown, all about to kick off. Meanwhile, in the UK, back here in Blighty, will this New Year's Eve be a washout? I've already seen stuff cancelled across Edinburgh and, of course, in Blackpool. And also moving on to politics, will 2025 be the year that Reform establishes themselves as a de facto opposition in British politics? Or will this new party simply run out of momentum? And truly here, a story to restore faith in humanity. On today's show, I'll be joined by two real-life Santa's little helpers. Look at them, beautiful there. Charlie, age 7, and his little sister, Molly, aged 4. This year, the inspiring brother and sister decided to sell their old toys and donate their new Christmas gifts to a local children's hospice. It's a marvellous story. I'll be joined by the wonderful two kids shortly. That's all coming up in your next hour. Welcome to the show. Always a pleasure to have your company. Arise, Sir Sadiq. Arise, Sir Gareth Wokegate. How do you feel about London Mayor Sadiq Khan getting the top gong in the New Year's honours list? And what about Gareth Southgate? He never won anything, yet he's just been given a gong. The guy who took the knee to Black Lives Matter, who brought racism into politics when all we want to do is get on with the sport and kick it out. And today, Tony Blair, there's a guy who's back in the news because information has leaked out that he opened the borders to the G8 nations in Europe, despite the fact he's repeatedly warned that could destroy our economy. Now, we're going to throw now to Hong Kong. I believe we've got some live pictures we can show you from Hong Kong. The fireworks display is kicking off. Look at that, wonderful. That is Hong Kong. Happy 2025 to Hong Kong. A marvellous display, not being stopped there by the rain. There's rumours, of course, that it might be affecting London as well as Hogmanay, which has already been cancelled in Edinburgh. It's always miserable in Edinburgh this time of year. It's always windy. Yet this year, is it health and safety that's done for it? Blackpool, of course, has also gone the same way. Wonderful scenes there. We'll have more of that throughout the rest of the show. Get in touch usual ways about your New Year's Eve plans. Go to gbnews.com/yoursay. Wonderful there in Hong Kong. Now, it's time for your headlines back here in Blighty. And it's Sophia Wensler.
Martin, thank you. It's just gone 4 o'clock. These are your headlines. Japan, Australia and New Zealand were the first to ring in the new year with celebrations and firework displays, followed by Hong Kong and Taiwan, who are currently still celebrating now. They've just rung in the new year. But as the world prepares to welcome in 2025, severe weather is set to hamper Britain's New Year's events. The Edinburgh Hogmanay celebrations have been cancelled due to severe weather conditions. Heavy rain and high winds are causing disruption in much of the country, with blizzards forecast in Scotland and widespread travel disruption. Almost every part of the UK is covered by at least one of multiple Met Office weather warnings. Fireworks displays in Newcastle's quayside have been cancelled, while Blackpool and North Yorkshire are also reporting cancellations. Meanwhile, City Hall in London says they're monitoring weather conditions ahead of the capital's annual New Year's Eve fireworks display this evening. Former England football manager Gareth Southgate, actor Stephen Fry and gardener Alan Titchmarsh are among some of the famous names included on this year's New Year's honours list. The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, has also been knighted, sparking fury among some amid London's spiralling crime rate. Sir Keir Starmer has been accused of rewarding failure as knife crime has increased in the capital by 50% since Khan took office in 2016. The Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philps, said Londoners would be furious. The London mayor was also responsible for rolling out the controversial ULEZ scheme in Greater London, which critics say hit the poorest workers the hardest. Meanwhile, the newly appointed Sir Sadiq said he was truly humbled to receive the honour. Nigel Farage has delivered his New Year message from Blenheim Palace, the birthplace of Sir Winston Churchill. In his message to the nation, he speaks about why he jumped back into the political arena, becoming a grandfather, the optimism he has for the country, and his belief that Reform UK can make Britain great again. But he fears we've been let down by previous governments for decades.
You know, the fish rots from the head down. We have been appallingly led in this country now for several decades. We are in societal decline. We are in economic decline. Most people are getting poorer with every year that passes. We're losing any sense of national identity. And we're actually teaching kids at school that people like Winston Churchill, born in this palace, are bad people and that our country's history is something to be ashamed of.
In other news now, Tony Blair's Labour government pushed on with plans to open the UK's borders to Eastern Europe, despite mounting concerns from senior ministers. That's according to newly released official files. The National Archives has published Cabinet Office files from 2003 to 2004, when Tony Blair was Prime Minister. The documents revealed the issue of immigration was top of the agenda, with senior ministers urging the then Prime Minister to delay granting employment rights to Eastern and Central European workers when the EU expanded in 2004. But Mr Blair's government went ahead with plans despite the warnings. Now, the government will never solve the small boat crisis unless it brings in an effective deterrent, GB News has been told. The former head of the UK Border Force says efforts by Sir Keir Starmer to smash the gangs cannot succeed through law enforcement alone. It comes as the number of illegal migrants who crossed the Channel this year reached nearly 37,000. That's 25% higher than last year's total. Tony Smith told us that more needs to be done to put an end to the crisis.
What I haven't seen is a real deterrent. The only real change we've seen from this government is the abolition of the Rwanda scheme, which would have said to people, look, I'm sorry, we're not going to consider your asylum application or your human rights application in this country. You can go to Rwanda for that. I thought that was the boldest attempt since Australia to try and set up an interdiction policy, which would have been a deterrent and would have made people perhaps who are already in a safe country think twice about making that perilous journey.
And New Year's Eve revellers in Wales are being urged to drink sensibly, while ambulance chiefs have asked people to only call 999 in the case of an emergency to help reduce pressure on services across the UK. In Wales, the service said there were more than 340 calls waiting to be answered when the incident was declared last night. Meanwhile, Walsall Healthcare NHS Trust in the West Midlands declared a critical incident due to increased numbers of patients seeking hospital care for respiratory illnesses. The Association of Ambulance Chief Executives said teams are under severe pressure due to the time of year and high levels of COVID-19, norovirus and flu. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Sophia. And let's just enjoy some more of that magnificent firework display there in Hong Kong. 8 hours ahead of us there, just to midnight. Let's enjoy some of the wonderful pyrotechnic display in Hong Kong. Magnificent. Absolutely magnificent, and Happy New Year to Hong Kong. That's the way to do it. That's the way to do it. Of course, Hogmanay in Edinburgh has been cancelled due to inclement weather. Then you always get inclement weather in Edinburgh at New Year's Eve, and superb stuff there. And of course, there's question mark over Blackpool. That's gone down. Will they go ahead in London tonight? Sadiq Khan's woke drone display might be compromised. And of course, as well as Hong Kong, Taiwan are also just welcoming in 2025. They're also the same as us, 8 hours ahead. Superb fireworks there. Great stuff. Now moving on. Back to Blighty, because fury has erupted after London Mayor Sadiq Khan was knighted in the New Year's honours list this year. Sir Keir Starmer has been accused of rewarding failure as knife crime has increased in the capital by 50% since Khan took office back in 2016. And among those joining Sadiq Khan on the honours list include Gareth Southgate, Stephen Fry and Keely Hodgkinson, the Olympian. And 4 former sub-postmasters have also been given OBEs for services to justice after taking the post office to court, of course, over the Horizon IT scandal. But it's the outrage towards the Mayor of London's honour justified. Well, joining me now from Ali Pali is GBNews reporter Adam Cherry. Adam, welcome to the show. It wouldn't be a New Year's Eve without there being a furore over the New Year's honours list. Adam Cherry, this time Sadiq Khan is making a few people choke on their eggnog. Is their criticism justified, or does the Mayor deserve his gong?
I don't know. I think it exists in the context of the honours every year, doesn't it? Every year we see squawks from one side or the other in response to political honours, which don't necessarily match the valour and dedication of other honours, or indeed, artistry or whatever. The political ones are always used as a way for rewarding loyalty and sort of fealty to whatever leadership is in power at that time. It's not just Sadiq Khan. There's also Emily Thornberry, who's really getting a consolation prize. She's getting a damehood because she missed out on being appointed to the cabinet in the summer. We also had Sue Gray. We know already she's going into the House of Lords. She's getting a peerage, and that's basically as a sweetener since being sacked as Chief of Staff. So fine, people will criticise Sadiq Khan, but look at how many Conservative MPs from the '97 era and that sort of territory. Look how many of them have received knighthoods already. Whoever's in power, they fling these things out like they're going out of business. So it doesn't surprise me necessarily.
Adam Cherry, you're a football fan like myself. Can I ask you for your reaction to Gareth Wokegate? You can probably tell my opinion on that. I wanted him gone as a football manager. I thought he was terrible for the club. I think he held us back. And I think him getting a gong is rewarding mediocrity. Here's a guy that gladly took the knee to Black Lives Matter, made football political. It's all about pride armbands, it's all about Dear England, racism letters. As you can probably tell, I'm not especially happy about that. The guy didn't win a thing, and now he's won a gong.
Well, I suppose so, Martin. I think you're more passionate about this than I am. I would just say, he did get us to 2 finals, and he did pretty well relative to the other managers in our recent history. So either he's a lucky general who could have done more with what he had, or he actually elevated the team, and for that he's rewarded for giving us our best side in quite some time. I don't know. The gesture politics, maybe he got swept up in that. I'm sort of giving you a politician's answer here because I'm not really sure about that one. I sort of half a dozen of one, 6 of the other. I'm not sure. Look, he did the best we've had for a long time.
Adam Cherry, I think you should maybe consider a career in politics, because that was spoken like a true politician, very, very diplomatic, far more so than me, particularly on New Year's Eve. I haven't even started drinking yet. Adam Cherry, have a fantastic evening there at Alexandra Palace, and have a very, very prosperous and peaceful and happy New Year. Thank you, my friend, for all you've done this year for GB News. Top lad. Now, let's continue the conversation. Back in the studio, I'm joined by the former editor of Labour List and a great friend of the show, Peter Edwards. Peter, happy New Year to you. Thanks for joining us in the studio. Let's talk about Sadiq Khan, the London Mayor. Of course, there's always an argument about political appointees. It always sticks in someone's craw. But Sadiq Khan, spiralling knife crime, ULEZ came in, expanded, hated by the working classes, impacted them the hardest, £12.50 a day to drive their cars. It's gone down pretty badly. Do you think that the Mayor, however, deserved this gong?
I think he does. And what's unusual is a politician being rewarded with a gong while they're still in high office. Often it comes in retirement or semi-retirement. But whether you agree or disagree with Sadiq Khan's individual policies, he has delivered on what he promised. ULEZ, for example, more police officers free school meals for every state-educated child in London.
Well, they're not free. They're paid for by taxpayers.
Well, nothing is free, Martin, but I'm not going to lecture you on New Year's Eve. Everything from the roads we walk down to our libraries we go into are not free in that sense, but free school meals for all primary school children in the state sector. You can argue about other policies, but he has delivered on what he promised.
But it's fair to say, and one thing that people spoke about all the time on GB News was that ULEZ didn't impact people who could afford an electric car. It didn't impact people who could simply pay to drive. It impacted, in fact, it was trade unionists, the NHS workers speaking out about the working poor, particularly in London's outer boroughs, who don't vote Labour, who didn't really have a say in this, who were impacted by this. It impacted their cost of living, it impacted their ability to feel well off. And these are unpopular policies with the working poor. But Sadiq Khan's voters ostensibly live in the middle of London. They take public transport. ULEZ was a tax on people who don't vote for him.
LEZ and ULEZ are both very contentious, but they're not particularly revenue raisers because of the cost, let alone the damage to people's lungs from air pollution. Of course, the charges affect people more on the periphery of London than the centre, but the key thing is, one, people are dying of poor air quality in London.
Is that true?
Yes, because we had air quality named on a child's death certificate.
It wasn't vehicle pollution named on that death certificate, it was air quality. We don't know it was vehicles. And it's fair to say vehicles were cleaner burning and getting better before ULEZ. And Sadiq Khan's own studies showed the impact of ULEZ was negligible.
It depends, and it's a bit too academic for New Year's Eve, on, what is the role of regulation and government, or in this case, municipal government, is to encourage changes in our behaviour, isn't it? And that's why the duty on cigarettes goes up every year, which I think is the right thing to do. We know there have been lots of problems over 20 to 30 years over air quality. Yes, there may be different inputs into why air quality has suffered, but air quality was named on a child's death certificate. Ella Adu, Kissy Deborah and her mother bravely campaigned for many years. I think for what he's done on air quality alone, 8 million, Sadiq would be an historical figure.
Millions and millions and millions of Londoners. The boroughs with the lowest pollution, so if you go to where the lowest pollution is, they have the oldest population and they have a highest death count because people are old. In central London, where the pollution is the highest, they have the lowest death count because people are young. It's not about air pollution. It's about how old you are and where you live. There's no provable causal link between vehicle pollution and death in Britain, anywhere.
There's a clear link between the amount of time we all drive, and I'm a driver, between the amount of time we spend on the road and the overall quality of air, the air in London. And I say that having lived in the inner city in Tower Hamlets, and now I live on the periphery. And I'd say one other thing briefly, which is, again, you're perfectly entitled to critique Sadiq Khan, but he was re-elected on these policies. By definition, he's popular.
What about spiralling knife crime? It's something that's been a lot of talk about since the very beginning. When Sadiq Khan first came in 2016, he promised to decrease stop and search because he thought it was racist and divisive. Soon did a U-turn when the bodies started piling up. He made stop and search political, and that didn't help anybody.
Well, come on, I think stop and search has always been political, but I want to be fair to the Met Police. They've made some catastrophic mistakes, but I think they are changing slowly, and they've done a lot more to ensure that voices of colour are heard both in the police force and among the communities they police. But when you look at knife crime, I'm a parent, you are, that's clearly a source of huge concern. But there's more than one reason for that. It's not just stop and search, it's not just the Mayor of London, it's education, it's people carry a knife because they're afraid. That's not a justification for using it, clearly. It's about what goes on in schools, education, poverty, the closure of police stations under David Cameron, the austerity is. There's more than one reason why crime increases.
Cultural issues, absent fathers, they're also factors, but the factors that it seems the Mayor of London doesn't want to talk about. Peter Edwards, thank you very much for joining us, and a very Happy New Year to you. I like your shirt, it matches the Christmas tree. Beautiful stuff.
Happy New Year.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure. Thank you. Now, let's move on, because if you didn't get everything on your Christmas list this year, fret ye not, because how about 50 grand in tax-free cash in the new year? It really could be all yours, and our biggest ever Great British giveaway. Here's all the details that you need to enter.
There's still plenty of time to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize ever, an incredible £50,000. What would you spend £50,000 on in the coming year? Spectacular holidays, a brand new car, home improvements, or maybe you'd just like to save it for a special occasion? For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Fill your boots. Now, still to come, do you believe in miracles? Well, will the government ever be able to stop the boats? I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Business News Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Robert Walton has been jet-setting in recent weeks in Singapore for the YYY Awards and then back to London to host the inaugural Restaurant Association Awards.
Yep, and after many years in the industry, Robert also knows a thing or two about how to create the perfect Christmas. And it's all in the preparation. So we're going to be asking him about that as well. I'm delighted to say that the godfather of hospitality, Robert Walton, MBE, joins us now on the sofa.
Morning, Robert.
Robert,
Good
so
morning.
good to see you. And what a busy few weeks you have had.
Yeah.
Should we start with the YYY Awards?
Yeah.
Because I think it's just wonderful who you celebrated at those awards.
So, the YYY, Young Chef, Young Waiter, Young Mixologist. And it's a competition that's created around the world. So people from all around the world can apply. So this year we had 9 countries, from India to the Caribbean, from the USA to Scotland and England. And so we had 27 young professionals. The average age was about 24.
Wow.
All coming to Singapore. So we flew everyone to Singapore. We create what I call the Olympic Village. We create a little village for them, and it's in a very cool spot with great bars. And then we have the competition. And this year, I can now announce, I was here just a few weeks ago before we had the competition, that the USA won, which was absolutely incredible. Thailand was second. And gorgeous Wales was third.
Yes. Well done, Wales.
Well done, Wales.
We now expect to have a good meal. There's no reason why you shouldn't have good food. The key now is the service, because there's no reason why you don't have good service. And good service is not that difficult. Smile, to start with. It really isn't that difficult. It's called hospitable. We call the industry, or the sector we look after, is the hospitality industry, which is all about being hospitable.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 4:26 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, we've got some sad breaking news for you now, because the veteran radio DJ Johnny Walker, the legend, he sadly died at the age of 79. At the end of October, he presented his final Sounds of the 70s show on BBC Radio 2 and hosted his last episode of The Rock Show as he retired due to ill health. He'll be sadly missed, and we'll bring you more as we have it here on GB News. Now moving on, and fury has erupted after London Mayor Sadiq Khan was knighted in the New Year's honours list. Sir Keir Starmer, beg your pardon, Khan has been accused of rewarding failure, as knife crime has, of course, increased in the capital by 50% since Sadiq Khan took office in 2016. Now, among those joining Sir Sadiq on the honours list this year included Gareth Southgate, Stephen Fry and Keely Hodgkinson, the Olympian. And the 4 former sub-postmasters have also been given OBEs for services to justice after taking the post office to court over, of course, the Horizon IT scandal. But the outrage towards the Mayor of London, is it justified? Well, I'm joined now by my magnificent News Eve panel. That's the political commentator Chloe Dobbs and the trade unionist Andy Twells. Welcome back, Chloe and Andy. Chloe, I'm going to start with you. These honours lists, they always stick in someone's craw, but Sadiq Khan has particularly raised the shackles of people today. Did he deserve his gong?
I don't think so. I do think that it is rewarding failure. I mean, he has ruined this capital city that was once great. It's now a really unsafe place. You can't go anywhere without getting your phone snatched, it would seem. Knife crime, as you said, they're up 50%. And he doesn't seem to care. When he's questioned on it, he just doesn't seem to care. He's interested in his little woke bubble where he talks about diversity, and any time that someone criticises him, he says, oh, it's because you're a racist or you're Islamophobic. Trump, for example, he criticised how Khan has ruined London and made it a place that's ridden with crime. And he responded on a podcast saying, oh, Trump made those comments about me because of the colour of skin in my faith. It is childish and it's pathetic. And ULEZ, even when the evidence was becoming clearer and clearer that the expansion of it was going to do very, very little to change air quality, yet be a huge tax on the poor, he refused to change tune, and it's really, really upset Londoners. So people really think that this is not a well-deserved honour.
Andy Twelves, a rise, Sir Sadiq. Is that something that makes you rise with pride?
I mean, not particularly. I mean, I'm sure his family are extremely proud, and I'm sure he's proud and honoured to have been given this gong. But I mean, I disagree with the way that the honour system works in this country. I don't think people should be given it for doing their job. Do you know what I mean? Like athletes or, politicians, I don't think they should be getting honours. I think it should be, those kind of community figures or the people like the sub-postmasters like Lee Castleton who have gone above and beyond for just causes and, rightful causes. And I think it should be people who are doing extra, not just doing their job, that receive honours. So, even if I was Sadiq's biggest fan, I wouldn't agree with it anyway.
Do you think this kind of... People see this as cronyism, packing out the laws with your own people on your own side. Emily Thornberry, of course, best remembered by many for her disparaging comments towards white van men. These kind of political appointments, isn't that the sort of cronyism that Labour Party said they wouldn't do?
Well, yes. I mean, getting knighthood. I mean, Emily Thornberry got a damehood. They don't get any extra rights for that. They get, some post-nominals and they get to be called Sir or Dame. I mean, Andy Street also got a knighthood, the Conservative former mayor of the West Midlands. So, I mean, it's just one of those political traditions that will continue going on, I suppose. Nobody's above it. Even the Greens have a lord, so, Do
you think that Andy has a point there, Chloe, and these political appointments, they should be scrapped?
Yeah, I think I would actually agree with Andy that it should really be focused on people who have done something fantastic for the community. I think when you start handing it out to politicians, athletes and whatnot, those are amazing people if they've, got a gold medal in the Olympics or whatnot, and they'll get plenty of praise for that. But I think, you open it up to a lot of controversy, and it probably would be better and less controversial if you kept it to people who have done something brilliant for the community.
Do you think the right kind of people are getting these because they tick the boxes? Gareth Southgate, Gareth Wokegate, I call him. All we wanted was to win a trophy. Please, some point in my lifetime. That hasn't happened under Gareth Southgate, and he got swept away with all the taking the knee nonsense and the racism stuff in politics, and people are so tired of this. Can we just focus on the sport? But he ticked all the boxes, and now he's got another tick in his box. He's got a gong.
Look, the Gareth Southgate thing, I'm no big fan of football, so I'm no expert, but he did improve our, ranking. We did get to a couple of finals, and you might say, coming second place, that's probably quite good for England. That was pretty terrible beforehand.
All right,
obviously, I don't like all of the wokery and whatnot, and I will never know whether he was picked on the basis of his wokery or because of his career achievements for the England team.
Andy, did he deserve the gong, Gareth Wokegate?
Well, I mean, based on my rules, no. But I think, he was a great international player. He cultivated a fantastic squad system over the 8 years that he was with 8 or 9 years. I can't remember how long, but over the almost 10 years that he was England manager.
Like a lifetime.
It really did. But he cultivated a great squad system. He really did build up the kind of under-21s, and I think he did deserve it. Yeah.
All right, superb stuff. Thank you very much to you, Andy and Chloe. Now, loads more still to come to you now, 5 o'clock, including a story to restore your faith in humanity on today's show. show, I'll be joined by two real-life Santa's little helpers. Look at them, gorgeous. Charlie 7 and his baby sister Molly, age 4. This year, the inspiring brother and sister, they decided to sell their old toys and donate this year's Christmas gift to a local children's hospice. Magnificent, and that's all coming next. First is your headlines, and here's Sophia Wensler.
Martin, thank you. Good afternoon. These are your headlines at 4:32. Japan, Australia and New Zealand were the first to ring in the new year with celebrations and fireworks displays, followed by Hong Kong and Taiwan, who in the last hour celebrated the new year. But as the world prepares to welcome in 2025, severe weather is set to hamper Britain's New Year's events. The Edinburgh Hogmanay celebrations have been cancelled due to severe weather conditions. Heavy rain and high winds are causing disruption in much of the country, with blizzards forecast in Scotland and widespread travel disruption. Almost every part of the UK is covered by at least one of multiple Met Office weather warnings. Fireworks displays in Newcastle's quayside have been cancelled, while Blackpool and North Yorkshire are also reporting cancellations. Meanwhile, City Hall in London says they're monitoring weather conditions ahead of the capital's annual New Year's Eve fireworks display this evening. Former England football manager Gareth Southgate, actor Stephen Fry and gardener Alan Titchmarsh are among some of the famous names included on this year's New Year's Honours list. The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, has also been knighted, sparking fury among some amid London's spiralling crime rate. Sir Keir Starmer has been accused of rewarding failure, as knife crime has increased in the capital by 50% since Khan took office in 2016. The Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp said Londoners would be furious. The London Mayor was also responsible for rolling out the controversial ULEZ scheme in Greater London, which critics say hit the poorest workers the hardest. Meanwhile, the newly appointed Sir Sadiq said he was truly humbled to receive the honour. New Year's Eve revellers in Wales are being urged to drink sensibly, while ambulance chiefs have asked people only to call 999 in the case of an emergency to help reduce pressure on services across the UK. In Wales, the service said there were more than 340 calls waiting to be answered when the critical incident was declared last night. Meanwhile, Walsall Healthcare NHS Trust in the West Midlands declared a critical incident due to increased numbers of patients seeking hospital care for respiratory illnesses. The Association of Ambulance Chief Executives said teams are under severe pressure due to the time of year and high levels of COVID-19, norovirus and flu. And some breaking news, Johnny Walker has died at the age of 79. It comes 2 months after the radio presenter called time on his 58-year career because of ill health. DJ Bob Harris, who took over BBC Radio 2's Sounds of the 70s show after Walker's retirement, announced his former colleague's death live on the station today. Walker had pulmonary fibrosis, which is scarring of the lungs, a condition which makes breathing difficult. Tim Davie, the BBC's Director General, said, "We are deeply saddened by the news of Johnny's passing, and our thoughts are with his family and friends, as well as everyone at Radio 2. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head towards the new year, it's going to be unsettled, outbreaks of rain and snow, very windy at times with multiple Met Office warnings enforced for the New Year's period. And it's all because we've got low pressure generally dominating the weather, bringing in some frontal systems, a squeeze in the isobars, so outbreaks of rain, some windy weather and also some snow, particularly across the far north of Scotland, particularly the Shetland Islands, where there is a Met Office warning enforced for outbreaks of snow. This becoming more prominent towards the early hours of the morning with a mix of some showers too. And then across parts of Wales, northern parts of England, some heavy and quite persistent outbreaks of rain at times too. And largely dry to the far south, but plenty of cloud. And we will start to see winds pick up during the early hours of the morning too. So to start the new year then, across Scotland, unsettled, plenty of showers feeding through, quite blustery at times, and also a risk of snow and ice, mainly across high ground, but also to lower levels too. We may start to see some brighter weather across Northern Ireland, but can't rule out some showers, particularly around coasts, and a very wet start across Wales, northern and central parts of England. This rain quite heavy and persistent at times still. We'll see the driest of the weather across the far southeast, but eventually these outbreaks of rain will slowly sink towards the southeast also, and very strong blustery winds, particularly around coast, but even inland areas seeing some quite gusty weather. And we may start to see some sunshine build through the day to the north of these outbreaks of rain, but plenty of showers once again falling as snow at times, and feeling very cold here too, slightly milder to the south, but still a chillier day on offer compared to what it was today. Into the evening, we'll eventually say goodbye to these outbreaks of rain. We'll see plenty of clear spells, but also wintry showers, and likely to wake up to quite a widespread sharp frost too. And into the outlook, it remains cold. There'll be more sunshine around, yes, but a risk of snow showers and a risk of frost and ice too.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm John Vincent. Long delays on the M6 northbound in Cheshire. Lanes 1 and 2 are closed for an overturned lorry. So the lorry is between junction 17 Sandbach and 18 for Middlewich, although the queues are going back southbound beyond junction 17. We're seeing slow traffic in Stoke-on-Trent on the A500D road southbound at Porthill Bank in the roadworks area, and the A50 Victoria Road in Fenton. We're seeing queues there in both directions in the roadworks near the Ravenside Retail Park. Queuing traffic in Rainham in London. The A1306 New Road is closed in both directions between Marsh Way and Dover's Corner for a building fire. And slow in Wandsworth on West Hill northbound between Tibbott's Corner and Upper Richmond Road. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Welcome back. It's 4:39 with me, Martin Daubney, here on New Year's Eve on GB News. Now remember, you can join GB News for the ultimate countdown to 2025. This evening, Patrick, Bev, Emily, Darren and Ben will all be together for a very, very special show. It's called GB News New Year's Live, and it's exclusively live on GB News from 10 p.m. tonight. Do not miss it. Set your alarm. Now, we're looking forward to this one all day because truly this is one of the most heartwarming stories that can restore your faith or anyone's faith in humanity. On today's show, I'm thrilled to be joined by two remarkable young children, Charlie, aged 7, and Molly, who's aged just 4. These two little ones have proven that no matter how small you are, you can make a huge difference, because this year, the duo Charlie and Molly took it upon themselves to sell all their old toys, and they so generously decided to donate the proceeds along with their own Christmas gifts to a local children's hospice. And their selflessness and compassion are nothing short of inspiring, reminding us all that the joy of Christmas comes truly from helping others. And I'm delighted to say I'm now joined by these two wonderful Santa's little helpers. Look at these gorgeous kids. That's Charlie and Molly, and also by their mum, I think to the camera left there, Michelle. First of all, you're an amazing pair of kids. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. I hope you had a great Christmas, and tell us, what inspired you to do this wonderful act of kindness this Christmas?
To be kind to other people.
Beautiful stuff. And where did you get the idea to not take... I mean, most kids just want, I know, a new phone, new gadgets, new stuff. Why did you have the idea, Charlie, to decide to give things away?
Because we didn't want them anymore, and they were a bit too babyish for us.
So these are your toys. You went around your house, Molly. So you grabbed a load of your toys. What toys did you grab to give away and sell? Tell us about that, darling.
Fancy dress.
Well, what about yourself, Charlie? What kind of clothes? What kind of gifts did you gather up from yesteryear to give away, and how much money did you raise?
We gave some puzzles. And some books.
Michelle, why don't you come into the view, Michelle, so we can see you as well. you're kind of you're feeding them the script there from the side of the camera. You get involved. That's it. So, Michelle, tell us about this amazing story, and how did you come up with the idea of it? And most kids it's just gimme, gimme, gimme. How come they were all about giving it away this year?
No, we often talk about how lucky they are and how they're very privileged children. So they're very aware that they're fortunate. So ahead of Christmas and Charlie's birthday in October, we said it would be a good idea if you have a sort through of your toys so that we have a bit more space for all the things you're hopefully going to be getting. And then when we started to raise the money, we said to them, it's your money, you can go on a day out or you can buy some new toys for yourselves. But they decided they wanted to buy toys for less fortunate children. And actually they wanted to post them originally, but that obviously wasn't going to be feasible. So the idea was that we would get them for our local children's hospice in Guildford.
And I believe, is that called the Shooting Star Children's Hospice there in Guildford, Surrey? And tell us about their reaction. Did you go there and physically hand them out?
So we couldn't actually hand them out because the children are quite poorly there, but the kind reception ladies took them from us. But you two delivered them, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in terms of kids, let's go back to you, Charlie. How did it feel? How did it make you feel so special to be acting, I guess, in a way like a little Santa's helper this year?
Mm-hmm. Was it good fun?
It was really good fun.
Great stuff. And Molly, what about you? What's your most special memory of this? How did it make you feel to do this?
Happy.
Made you happy, it was special. And Michelle, what do you think you've helped to teach your children? We often sort of struggle, don't we? Because Christmas can become so materialistic, it can become very, very expensive. Do you think not only have you kind of done a hugely charitable act by giving away so much stuff to the Shooting Star Children's Hospice, but you think you've helped to teach your kids about the value of stuff and actually the value of giving? It's not just about the money, it's about the acts of human compassion.
Exactly, yeah. And they felt great pride when they were not only buying the toys, but when they took it, you saw how proud they were of themselves. So, yeah, hopefully a lifelong lesson that they've learnt there. And
Charlie, have you become something of a local celebrity now?
Yeah.
Molly, how's it feel to be like, I don't know, on telly and in the newspapers?
You were very excited, weren't you?
Super stuff. Well, thank you very, very much for joining us today. You still got your tree up there. Look wonderful. Hope you had a wonderful, wonderful Christmas, and thanks for inspiring so many of us here on GB News. And I hope you have a fantastic New Year's Eve. Wishing you a peaceful and prosperous 2025. Thank you very much there, Michelle, Charlie, and of course Molly. Thank you very, very much. Wonderful story.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year, and don't get too drunk.
You sound just like my mum, and you sound just like my missus, and you know me too well. Wonderful stuff. Wonderful stuff. Thank you so much, Charlie, Molly, and mum Michelle. Isn't that magnificent? Now, you've been searching some winter sun this year, and who can blame you? And here's the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.
Can't wait. Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Here's your GB News winter sun forecast for the first day of 2025, and there will actually be some decent sunshine around, and with that, temperatures for some, including Madeira, actually a few degrees above average. A different story for Barcelona, largely dry, but temperatures, if anything, slightly below what you'd expect, but plenty of dry weather as we head further east, and for places such as Santorini here as well, temperatures a little bit on the mild side. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
3 incredible young people from Essex are planning to become the youngest people ever to row, not sail, row, across the Atlantic Ocean.
It's about for 3,000 miles?
It is.
Give or take.
Almost exactly that, Sam.
The 3 flying fish, so-called, consists of Anna, Dunk, Harry, Alan and Rowan Daly, who are preparing to row that 3,000 miles across the Atlantic. It would be the 2nd largest ocean in the world. And the trio are aiming to do that challenge in support of the Teenage Cancer Trust.
Well, I'm very pleased to say that Anna and Harry from the Flying Fish join us now. Very good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
I think the two of you are bonkers, but brilliant. Absolutely incredible what you're doing to raise money for Teenage Cancer Trust. Why did you want to do this?
So our third person, Rowan, his friend actually died. So when he was in secondary school, I believe, one of his peers passed away, and Teenage Cancer Trust supported them and their family a lot. So it was definitely the right charity. Yeah, it was.
Absolutely awful. So you wanted to do something to raise money for teenage cancer. Why rowing?
So my dad did it in 2021.
The trip, the Atlantic trip?
Yeah, he rowed it as a pair. Where we live in Essex, they actually build the boats there. So we used to cycle round there past the boatyard, and he got interested and actually did it. He was the first year after COVID. And one night, we all met in the Air Cadets, so one night after Air Cadets, Rowan actually dropped me off home and the boat was outside. We were obviously waiting to get it sold. And I think he was asking some questions, and we stood there at my porch and Rowan said, I reckon we could do that. And I was like, yeah, I reckon we could. And then we brought Harry on board, and that's kind of how it all came together.
If people are watching and they want to support you, do you have a
Yeah, we've
GoFundMe
got
page
social
yet?
media platforms at
Right.
The Free Flying Fish. That's Facebook, Instagram and TikTok, and our GoFundMe links in all of the bios on there.
Fantastic.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 4:49 here on New Year's Eve with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News. Now, will 2025 prove to be a breakout year for the Reform Party? Well, they've now got more members than the Conservatives, over 153,000 they claim, and the party is aiming to make serious breakthroughs at this year's local elections, if, that is, they're all allowed to go ahead. And there was more good news for Reform earlier, as polling from the More in Common Foundation predicted that they'd win 72 seats from the 5 they have now if a general election was held tomorrow. Now, he covered a lot of ground in the 6-minute video. This is Nigel Farage, but let's just have a listen to a small part of his New Year's message.
You know, the fish rots from the head down. We have been appallingly led in this country now for several decades. We are in societal decline. We are in economic decline. Most people are getting poorer with every year that passes. We're losing any sense of national identity. And we're actually teaching kids at school that people like Winston Churchill, born in this palace, are bad people, and that our country's history is something to be ashamed of.
So the big question is, will 2025 be the year of the reform revolution, or will this new party simply run out of momentum? And I'm joined now by my wonderful New Year's Eve panel. That's political commentator Chloe Dobbs and the trade unionist Andy Twelves. Andy, I'm going to start with you. Of course, that poll out at the weekend predicting Labour will get a battering, losing 200 seats. Could Reform become the de facto opposition?
I don't think they'd become the de facto opposition. I mean, even in the poll, I think the Tories still beat Reform, didn't they? They still got more seats than Reform. Obviously, MRP polls aren't perfect. I mean, if you look at Lee Anson's seat, one of Reform's 5 MPs, in the breakdown of the vote share, it didn't have the Ashfield independents even in the running. So
they never do seem to get into the polling. Yeah.
So when you actually look at MRPs, they're not perfect. They don't bring into account local politics. But I think this should be a wake-up call for Morgan McSweeney in number 10, obviously chief of staff and campaign director of the Labour Party. This is you know, we need to fight reform. The Labour Party needs to move into kind of the traditional working class, you know, aspects of the Labour Party. You know, it's kind of founding movement of, you know, well-paid working class job, unionised jobs, you know, English identity, really, you know, going on to the area that Labour used to dominate. You know, the Tories were nowhere near, you know, forget about the Liberals. That is where Labour used to dominate, and they need to return to the kind of traditional values of the Labour Party to ensure that, you know, next year Reform don't have as successful as the year as they did this year.
If you believe that this Labour Party is going to do that, I mean, do you believe in Santa?
Well,
I mean, the red wall has...
Red again.
It is for now, but the polling in this poll is that it's going to almost entirely turn turquoise because immigration, well-paid British jobs, net zero madness, all of these things that impact those areas. The Labour Party seems to be doubling down where the Conservatives left off.
Oh, I think, you know, the Reform Party is led by, you know, Nigel Farage, Richard Tice, Rupert Lowe. These are the kind of people whose, you know, termly fee for their boarding schools is more than working class people would earn a year. You know, what is it? Radley College, Dulwich College, Uppingham School. Like these are not. They don't understand the working class.
I mean, you can't say that they're winning in places like Ashfield and Skegness because people are holding against the fact that Nigel Farage went to Dulwich College.
I'm saying that they don't understand the working class, and the Labour Party needs to make good on the working class talent they have in the unions and within the grassroots of their party, and really, you know, go back to those traditional values.
Okay. Tell coal miner Lee Anderson that he doesn't understand the working class. Don't think every single one of them went to a big.
If we recall, Lee Anderson was a Labour councillor, was he not?
Yeah, but that's precisely the point.
Well, then
perhaps he went on the same journey as a lot of voters and fell out of love with the Labour Party. They felt abandoned then.
Yeah, well, they say that going to the Labour Party is like an intro drug to going to the Reform Party. A lot of people, when they decided they wanted to get the Tories out at the general election, they first thought about voting for Labour, but then actually switched to voting for Reform. It's not like it's the upper classes and only middle classes that vote for the Reform Party. That couldn't be further from the truth. And I feel like the Labour Party keep on showing us, with everything they've done to the farmers, for example, that they are completely out of touch with working classes and rural communities. They come across as a metropolitan elite.
Because the working class, you know, have to pay huge amounts of inheritance tax. That's, you know, the farmers need to pay their tax. The farmers
with what cash?
The farmers are not working class people.
With what cash?
If
you really think you get rich selling potatoes and leeks?
If you were that poor off, you wouldn't have to pay inheritance tax.
OK, we have to call it time there. We're just getting warmed up there. Andy 12s and Chloe Dobbs, thank you very much, and we'll see you again in the next hour. Now, loads more coming up in that next hour. I'm Martin Daubney here on GB News, including we'll have some more magnificent fireworks for you, and of course we'll be playing tribute to a sad loss in the world of radio. That's next with me, Martin Daubney. But first, here's your weather, and it's On a Critic.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head towards the new year, it's going to be unsettled, outbreaks of rain and snow, very windy at times with multiple Met Office warnings enforced for the New Year's period. And it's all because we've got low pressure generally dominating the weather, bringing in some frontal systems, a squeeze in the isobars, so outbreaks of rain, some windy weather and also some snow, particularly across the far north of Scotland, particularly the Shetland Islands, where there is a Met Office warning in force for outbreaks of snow. This becoming more prominent towards the early hours of the morning with a mix of some showers too. And then across parts of Wales, northern parts of England, some heavy and quite persistent outbreaks of rain at times too. And largely dry to the far south, but plenty of cloud. And we will start to see winds pick up during the early hours of the morning too. So to start the new year then, across Scotland, unsettled, plenty of showers feeding through, quite blustery at times, and also a risk of snow and ice, mainly across high ground, but also to lower levels too. We may start to see some brighter weather across Northern Ireland, but can't rule out some showers, particularly around coasts, and a very wet start across Wales, northern and central parts of England. This rain quite heavy and persistent at times still. We'll see the driest of the weather across the far southeast, but eventually these outbreaks of rain will slowly sink towards the southeast also, and very strong blustery winds, particularly around coast, but even inland areas seeing some quite gusty weather. And we may start to see some sunshine build through the day to the north of these outbreaks of rain, but plenty of showers once again falling as snow at times, and feeling very cold here too, slightly milder to the south, but still a chillier day on offer compared to what it was today. Into the evening, we'll eventually say goodbye to these outbreaks of rain. We'll see plenty of clear spells, but also wintry showers, and likely to wake up to quite a widespread sharp frost too. And into the outlook, it remains cold. There'll be more sunshine around, yes, but a risk of snow showers and a risk of frost and ice too.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm John Vincent. Queues on the A590 eastbound in Cumbria. It's all due to an accident between the Bretagh Holt roundabout and junction 36 of the M6 at Kirby Lonsdale. In Lincolnshire, the A158 Partney Road has been closed as a result of an accident between a car and a motorbike between the Partney Pumps roundabout and the Wraithby turnoff. Long delays on the M6 northbound in Cheshire. Lanes 1 and 2 are closed for an overturned lorry between junction 17 Sandbach and 18 for Middlewich. Queues going back southbound beyond Sandbach. In Rainham in London, the A1306 New Road is closed in both directions between Marshway and Dover's Corner for a building fire, and it's slow on the A2 Rochester Bridge heading westbound towards Stroud. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
You could be joining the Great British Giveaway list of winners with your chance to grab a fantastic £50,000 in tax-free cash.
My name is Cliff. And my name is Julie. And we won $25,000. I'd say don't hesitate, do it. If you're not in it, you've got no chance of winning it.
For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon and a very, very happy New Year's Eve to you. It's 5 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting for you all across the UK, and a happy New Year to you. Will you be celebrating the arrival of 2025? And we've got some live pictures here because Thailand is bringing in the new year in Bangkok. On your screens now, they're counted down, they can see. Just over 30 seconds to go. We're expecting the fireworks. We're going to stick on these images. In the last hour, of course, we brought you some magnificent pictures from Hong Kong and Taiwan. They were 8 hours ahead. Bangkok, of course, 7 hours ahead. It's just turning midnight there. We're on the last 20 seconds now. They're about to kick off. We're expecting a magnificent display. They're not bothered about carbon footprint or people telling them they have to have a drone display. I suspect they're going to go straight for the gunpowder. 5 seconds left. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year, Thailand. Here we go. Fireworks going off in Bangkok. Let's enjoy the display for a moment.
Next up, ladies and gentlemen, is the rhythm of blossoming nature.
There we go, 2025 getting off to a bang there in Bangkok. Happy New Year to Thailand, 7 years ahead. Now moving on back here in Blighty. Arise, Sir Sadiq Khan. Yes, seriously, what is going on with these New Year's honours list as the Mayor of London gets a New Year's gong? And round about 7 o'clock this evening, farmers all over the country will be burning beacons this new year to protest against the Labour Party's inheritance tax raid. That starts around about 7 p.m. this evening. And some sad news reaching us this afternoon. The veteran radio DJ, the legend Johnny Walker, who hosted, of course, BBC Radio 2's Sounds of the 70s and The Rock Show, has sadly died, aged 79. We'll bring you the very latest here on GB News as we get it and speak to a former colleague of his, and that's coming all in your next hour. Well, there's only a few hours now to go until 2025. What are you doing tonight? I'm going for a curry with my cousin and my auntie and uncle. I've got to be on my best behaviour because I'm working back here tomorrow, 3 till 6 p.m. for you. It's a normal week for me here at GB News. You can't stop us out but in. Thanks for all your support this year. It's truly been a magnificent year. I think we've had an epic year cutting through. And as I said yesterday, so many people approached me in Nottingham to say thank you, shook my hand and just talked about politics and shared a beer with us. That's what we're here for. We're the People's Channel. It's almost 2025 and I reckon it's going to be an absolutely epic year for us coming ahead, and I hope it is for you and your family. I hope it's prosperous, I hope it's peaceful, and I wish you all the very, very best at home. Get in touch. What are you doing tonight? Let me know. gbnews.com/your say. But now, without any further ado, here's your headlines, and it's Sophia Wensler.
Martin, thank you. It's just gone 5 o'clock. These are your headlines. Thailand, Vietnam and Indonesia are ringing in the new year. As you can see, celebrations in Bangkok now live in the pictures below. Japan, Australia and New Zealand were the first to ring in the new year with celebrations and fireworks displays, followed by Hong Kong and Taiwan, who celebrated in the last few hours. But as the world welcomes in 2025, severe weather is set to hamper Britain's New Year's events. The Edinburgh Hogmanay celebrations have been cancelled due to weather conditions. Heavy rain and high winds are causing disruption in much of the country, with blizzards forecast in Scotland and widespread travel disruption. Almost every part of the UK is covered by at least one of multiple Met Office weather warnings. Fireworks displays in Newcastle Quayside have been cancelled, while Blackpool and North Yorkshire are also reporting cancellations. Meanwhile, City Hall in London say they're monitoring weather conditions ahead of the capital's annual New Year's Eve fireworks display this evening. Former England football manager Gareth Southgate, actor Stephen Fry and gardener Alan Titchmarsh are among some of the famous names included on this year's New Year's honours list. The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, has also been knighted, sparking fury among some amid London's spiralling crime rate. Sir Keir Starmer has been accused of rewarding failure as knife crime has increased in the capital by 50% since Khan took office in 2016. The Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philps said Londoners would be furious. The London Mayor was also responsible for rolling out the controversial ULEZ scheme in Greater London, which critics say hit the poorest workers the hardest. Meanwhile, the newly appointed Sir Sadiq said he was truly humbled to receive the honour. In other news, the government will never solve the small boats crisis unless it brings in an effective deterrent, GB News has been told. The former head of the UK Border Force says efforts by Sir Keir Starmer to smash the gangs cannot succeed through law enforcement alone. It comes as the number of illegal migrants who crossed the Channel this year reached nearly 37,000. That's 25% higher than last year's total. Tony Smith told us that more needs to be done to put an end to the crisis.
What I haven't seen is a real deterrent. The only real change we've seen from this government is the abolition of the Rwanda scheme which would have said to people, look, I'm sorry, we're not going to consider your asylum application or your human rights application in this country. You can go to Rwanda for that. I thought that was the boldest attempt since Australia to try and set up an interdiction policy, which would have been a deterrent and would have made people perhaps who are already in a safe country think twice about making that perilous journey.
New Year's Eve revellers in Wales are being urged to drink sensibly, while ambulance chiefs have asked people to only call 999 in the case of an emergency to help reduce pressure on services across the UK. In Wales, the service said there were more than 340 calls waiting to be answered when the incident was declared last night. Meanwhile, Walsall Healthcare NHS Trust in the West Midlands declared a critical incident due to the increased numbers of patients seeking hospital care for respiratory illnesses. The Association of Ambulance Chief Executives said teams are under severe pressure due to the time of year and high levels of COVID-19, norovirus and flu. Wayne Rooney has left his job as head coach of Championship strugglers Plymouth Argyle. Rooney and Plymouth have mutually agreed to part ways with immediate effect after a 9-game winless run. The 39-year-old former England captain oversaw just 4 league wins and suffered 13 defeats in 23 championship games after taking charge of the Pilgrims in May. And Johnny Walker has died at the age of 79. It comes 2 months after the radio presenter called time on his 58-year career because of ill health. DJ Bob Harris, who took over BBC Radio 2's Sounds of the 70s show after Walker's retirement, announced his former colleague's death live on the station today. Walker had pulmonary fibrosis, which is scarring of the lungs, a condition which makes breathing difficult. Tim Davie, the BBC's Director General, said, "We are deeply saddened by the news of Johnny's passing, and our thoughts are with his family and friends, as well as everyone at Radio 2. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Martin.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to news alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Sophia. Now, the sad news we have for you here, because the veteran radio DJ Johnny Walker has sadly passed away at the age of 79. At the end of October, he presented his final Sounds of the 70s radio show on BBC Radio 2 and also hosted his last episode of The Rock Show as he retired due to ill health. Well, join me now is the radio DJ and the writer, Mike Reid. Mike, great to have you on the show, albeit under very such sad circumstances, and a very happy new year to you. Of course, Johnny Walker, a veteran of 58 years, a lot of that at the BBC, and of course, that's where you cut your teeth. He was a colleague of yours, he was a legend, loved by many, many people watching this show. Tell us your special memories of Johnny Walker.
Well, he was an inspiration to many. I mean, he was there with the Pirates, which you can't overestimate their importance and the whole industry for everyone, publishers, writers, musicians, the British invasion. The Pirates were so important. Johnny was at the helm there. He was almost the DJ's DJ. He was the DJ everyone wanted to be, and was always, like several of us, very passionate about the music. He wouldn't lay down if somebody said, "You've got to do this, you've got to do that." He questioned it, and he really championed the music as well, and still did. And that's the thing that, you know, we still have a passion for it as well. And right until, you know, his last program, he was there with a passion. But I say he inspired so many of us, really down the years, who wanted to be, you know, a DJ like him. I mean, he was really good, and he loved the music so much. That's the main thing. So many people, you know, do it because they want to do it. They want to be famous. They want to be a celebrity. Johnny did it, I think, because he loved the music and loved communicating.
And Mike, you know, what's always so sad about these moments, it's bittersweet because so many of us grew up with the music, and people like Johnny Walker, they were the voiceover, they were the soundtrack, they were the personality of the entire era, the sounds of the 70s, the rock shows, and Johnny's voice was that thing, and a part of us goes when people like him pass away.
Yes, it does. And I think he might have been very amused at just seeing a picture of Johnny Walker from the Walker Brothers on the screen there. I think that would have probably tickled Johnny. I just spotted that and I thought, that's John Walker from the Walker Brothers. He would have laughed uproariously at that, I'm sure. But yes, I mean, how lucky are we to do something for that long that you're passionate about and that you love? And he did. And he was able to do it for the whole of his career, still inspire people, still love it, still do it, and still enjoying it. You know, if you can do that in your life, you're a very, very lucky man.
And do you know what, Mike Reid? History has proven him right, because the oldies, the classics, they're still massively, massively popular with the audiences, and radio shows, radio channels chasing the younger and younger voters, the younger and younger listeners. Perhaps they got it wrong, because Johnny Walker understood that people are loyal, audiences are loyal, and they love the sounds they grew up with, and the older people listen to the shows, and Johnny proved that point correctly. He was the voiceover to a generation.
Absolutely right. Yeah, quite right. And people who listened to Top of the Pops back in the day, almost a third of the country. So it was popular. Music was popular. It was a must-see. We love the music. The music ran through us like a stick of rock. Now there are other things that kids go, yeah, maybe they don't know so much about music. And you're quite right. People actually chasing the younger dollar when the older dollar is still, hang on, I still love the music. You know, I still want this music. And Johnny was right there on the button.
I think you're exactly right. I think you're right. And, you know, this endless pursuit of youth. And let's face it, younger people now, they're on YouTube. They're not going towards the major channels anymore. And Johnny Walker just had that core audience all the way through. Sad to see him pass away. Thank you so much, Mike Reid. Hope you're having a wonderful Christmas and a very, very prosperous and peaceful New Year to you. And thanks, as ever, for joining us here on GB News. Mike Reid, the legend. Thank you very, very much indeed. Superb. Now, if you didn't get everything on your Christmas list this year, don't worry about it, because how about 50 grand in tax-free cash in the new year? It really could be all of yours in our biggest ever Great British Giveaway. Here's the details you need to enter.
There's still plenty of time to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize ever, an incredible £50,000. What would you spend £50,000 on in the coming year? Spectacular holidays, a brand new car, home improvements, or maybe you'd just like to save it for a special occasion? For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Now, coming up, does Sadiq Khan deserve his knighthood, or is it an insult to Londoners and specifically an insult to its motorists? I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
British 10-year-old has beaten Stephen Hawking and Albert Einstein in an IQ test, would you believe? Genius Krish Arora got the maximum score of 162, which puts him in the top 1% globally.
Goodness me. Well, Krish's parents noticed his brilliant potential after learning he could read fluently by the age of 4.
Krish, how does it feel to be a child genius?
I feel really happy and privileged.
Aww. Do you see it as a gift that you have?
Yeah.
Oh, that's just wonderful. Nichelle, what do you make of your child being a genius? When did it become apparent to you that Krish had something different, something special?
I think at the age of 4, he was doing things that were way beyond and above his age.
Yeah.
He could read fluently and he could spell correctly, and he was doing complex decimal divisions. So we thought that he's on to something. I think there's a spark out here.
Wow. And how are you reading books, Krish? Did you just pick them up from your mum and dad's bookshelf and just start reading to yourself?
We used to go to the library and we got books.
Such a good tip. Such a good tip as parents.
Yeah.
Head to the library, take your kids to the library.
So, Nishal, can Krish just do it all? Is he just an all-rounder genius? Every subject, every talent, he can do it all?
Absolutely, and he helps out the family as well. He's been teaching me grade 1 piano, and he hopes, and I repeat, he hopes that I'm going to complete it in 12 months' time. And he also helps out Mum, because when Mum is teaching his sister, Mum sometimes says, Krish, go solve that problem and, help your sister out. So, yes, he can do it all.
Krish, you're a superstar.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 5:18 on New Year's Eve with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, there's been a furious backlash to London Mayor Sadiq Khan receiving a knighthood in the New Year's honours list, pointing to spiralling knife crime and net zero policies that have hammered the working classes in particular, the most notorious of those being the ULEZ rollout. The question is this: is Sadiq Khan being rewarded for his war on motorists? Well, I'm joined in the studio by my panel, the political commentator Chloe Dobbs and the trade unionist Andy Twelves. I'm also joined down the line now by the founder of Fair Fuel UK, and that's Howard Cox. Howard, hope you're having a wonderful Christmas and a beautiful New Year's Eve. On to the topic of Sadiq Khan being given a gong. Presumably with you, it's about as popular as a fart in a lunchbox.
Happy New Year, my good friend. Well, I actually commented this on various newspaper articles about 4 or 5 weeks ago when it was rumoured that he was going to be knighted. And, when I've removed the sick bucket from carrying around that for a long, long time, I've realised just how true it was. And it's very sad. I mean, along with about 10 of thousands of other Londoners, I do feel disgusted and betrayed by Keir Starmer for a rewarding failure. It's nothing but a disaster. There's a stench almost of political cronyism wafting from 10 Downing Street all the way to City Hall. This is just too convenient. I can go through, you've done it already, I've listened to a lot of you today, and you're talking about, really what he's done for London, which he's done a hell of a lot for London badly. And so from that point of view, I'm disgusted that he's been awarded a very important thing when I see people not far from me here who go and run food banks. They've been doing it for 4 or 5 years and this sort of thing. No one recognises them. They don't get paid for it. They're all volunteers. And yet this man's on £160,000 a year. He manages a budget of about £20 billion badly. And from that point of view, this is totally and utterly wrong. And I've said it many times before, I'm going to say it again, he is dishonest. He's a pathological liar in what he does. And I'm sick to death of, the fact that people, well, only 18% of Londoners actually voted for him. 82% didn't. That's partly because of apathy. But I'm afraid Londoners have got what he voted for, a very dishonest politician.
OK, Howard, of course, he would deny the fact that he's a pathological liar. That's a strong thing to say. But let's focus, if we can, on ULEZ, because I know in particular campaigning for fuel deals with Fair Fuel UK is your strength in point. And in particular, you more than anybody else have taken the temperature test of motorists in London. Can you tell us about ULEZ? Of course, Sadiq Khan would claim it's about cleaner air. We all want cleaner air. But what's your take on the reality of that situation?
Well, all this policy has done is hurt drivers, sole traders, low-income motorists, and according to the CEBR, the Centre for Economic and Business Research, it's ripped out about £500 million from the economy, the GDP of London, because of ULEZ, and because sole traders, plumbers, electricians aren't going into London anymore. They can't be bothered to pay £12.50 for something to go and submit a quote to a client, simply because knowing that they might not get it. What's the point of doing that? Those are the sorts of things that happened, and what I'm hearing from, and you've actually lead me next week. I'm publishing a report on actually what do people think of the ULEZ, basically that, but also what they think of net zero, which is all related, the whole package, the 2030 ban on new petrol and diesel car sales, those sorts of things. We're coming out with the truth, and already we've got something like 35,000 responses. By next week it'll be up to over 50,000, and no one can discount that sort of thing. And we've invited all sorts of people to join in this poll online. There's cyclists as well. Everyone's involved, and all I can say to you is that no one trusts Sadiq Khan, and this is an important point that no one seems to have mentioned. Now he's got this recognition from the King to become Sir Sadiq Khan. What's he going to do now to London, thinking he's got the approval, the highest, most approval for actually doing things even worse for Londoners?
And yet he's been voted in 3 times as London Mayor, and there's no upper limit on how many times he could stand. Do you think there might be something else going on here? A lot of people thought that Sadiq Khan might be a potential future threat to be the next Labour leader. Is this a way of kind of politically neutralising him, to drape him in ermine and stick him in the corner?
Absolutely. It's totally a compensatory sweetener. That's exactly what it is. And I give Starmer his due. He doesn't want to fight him. He knows that a guy, he's won 3 elections like Tony Blair did, another socialist. And from that point of view, Starmer is very unpopular. He won't win again, Starmer. He's got no chance whatsoever. So why put someone who's successful in winning elections against him? So yes, this is a sweetener to keep him out of the way. And the worst thing about it, the way it's been accepted, he says he's humble and all that sort of thing. All I can say, we're going to see a lot more arrogance and a lot more hurt for Londoners, because London's unrecognisable now, Martin. It's totally unrecognisable. I think you'll agree with that. I'm a proud South East Londoner, born in Lewisham, and when I go up and see these areas now, they're no-go areas. I wouldn't walk outside of my car in certain areas where I used to, have a good pint with a few people. It's a scary place to be now, and I don't recognise it as being British. And that's one of the things. Multiculturalism has been destroyed, or been promoted, but Britishness has been destroyed.
OK, Howard Cox, thank you very much. Apart from all that, no doubt you'd like to wish Sir Sadiq Khan a very, very happy New Year. And I'd like to wish you, Howard Cox, a very, very happy New Year. Thanks for joining us on GBNews today. Mind how you go. Thank you, always a pleasure. Thank you. Let's continue this chat now. Back in the studio with my wonderful New Year's Eve panel. Of course, I'm joined by Chloe Dobbs and the trade unionist Andy Twelves. Guys, welcome back. Andy, going to start with you. Obviously, Howard Cox there, not particularly happy about Sir Sadiq Khan. But in his defence, a lot of people would say we had to clean up the air in our cities. ULEZ might be a blunt tool, but we had to do something about it. But nevertheless, what about this talk about political cronyism? Should we scrap the entire political gong system?
Yeah, well, I mean, I agree. As I said earlier in the programme, I think that, knighthoods, MBEs, OBs, these honours should be for people who have gone above and beyond outside of their job, charity campaigners, people fighting for justice like the sub-postmasters, these kind of people. I think that should be what the honours are from. But, just looking at the ULEZ thing, I struggle to take Howard seriously here about nobody trusts him, nobody likes ULEZ. I mean, he's just won a 3rd term. He won, 43% of the vote. He won over 1 million votes. The Green Party came 3rd. They won, 5% of the vote. Reform, only Howard Cox standing for Reform, only won 3%. So to say that, everyone hates ULEZ, everyone hates Sadiq Khan, blah, 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 in London, objectively that is not true, because when they had the chance to get rid of him, they didn't. Not even close, I just can't take the analysis seriously when he got 40% less of the vote than Sadiq Khan. It's silly.
It's those places on the outskirts of London that have newly been affected by the ULEZ expansion that are absolutely furious. And a lot of these places are actually quite green places already, don't have a huge amount of air pollution. And I would have been behind the ULEZ expansion if it was actually going to make the air cleaner. I want to live in a capital city that's got nice, clean air. I remember my granddad telling me that when he he worked in London when in his 20s, after his cycle home, there would literally be black soot all over his skin. We've come a long way. But the evidence was stacking up. You know, Sadiq Khan paid, I think, a load of money to, it might be an Imperial, to actually do a study to prove how great his ULEZ expansion would be. They couldn't find any evidence that it was going to really make much of a difference. It was just a money grab, and people could see that.
But people disagree, clearly, because they've elected him in for a third term with a pretty big majority.
But
He's won in spite of, not because of his ULEZ expansion.
And objectively, you know, the air in London has never been cleaner.
Yeah.
And that's because, you know, we've got rid of coal-burning power stations, like the Batterseas, they've all gone. We're not allowed to burn coal in our homes anymore. Cars are naturally just cleaner burning anyway. All this was happening without ULEZ.
Sure.
It didn't need ULEZ to help it. And the point is, a lot of people just think this is a tax on motorists, and in particular, it's a tax on the motorists, as Howard Cox was saying, who can least afford it, the working classes, the tradesmen, they've been hammered by it.
I agree, and I think that there should be some form of kind of tax refund that they should be entitled to if they are genuinely using their, you know, if it's a trader using their van for work. I think they should be entitled to a tax refund or, you know, some kind of allowance towards it. And I think that is what most sensible people on the left would say. But Sadiq Khan, again, I hate to keep going on about it, but he was re-elected for a third term, so clearly he's not been politically rejected. This idea has not been politically rejected.
But there won't be tax breaks for tradesmen. There won't be tax breaks for the working class under Sadiq Khan, or indeed under Keir Starmer. In fact, the Labour Party have got a taste for this. It's a massive money spinner.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that the Labour Party will do that. If I was in charge, I'd do that.
I also think one of the reasons why he won another term is because I don't think the Tories fielded a good candidate. I mean, Susan Hall, if you ask me, just was, you know, it was like watching paint dry. I don't think she excited people at all. And at a time when people really wanted to get the Tories out on a national level, it made more people vote for Sadiq Khan. I don't think it was anything to do with ULEZ, the reason why he got another term.
Can I ask you about some of the points that Howard Cox was saying there, maybe a bit some of the fruitier points about the changing social fabric of London, the multicultural backdrop. You were saying earlier you think London has changed beyond all recognition. You feel it's less safe than before.
Yeah, I think that London is less safe. I think also, you know, the point he's making there about the social fabric, I presume he's talking about the fact that, you know, that there are barely any British people in London anymore, it would seem. I saw a really fascinating pie chart breaking it down into nationalities and how it's changed over just a decade or so. And you can clearly see the speed at which we've changed London is just way too fast for there to be proper integration. And you see it being, you know, it's a very segregated place now. Different nationalities, they group together and then often won't even learn the language. And I don't think that makes you a racist to point out that that's an issue.
OK, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much. Chloe Dobbs and Andy Twelves, pleasure as ever. Thanks for joining us. Now, still lots more to come between now and 6 o'clock, including up next, we're joined by the party planner and the etiquette expert, Laura Windsor, to give you some last-minute New Year's party tips. And I'm hoping she might bring me some booze. You can join GB News anytime tonight for the ultimate countdown to 2025, because later on, Patrick, Bev, Emily, Darren and Ben will all be together for a very, very special show. It's called GB News New Year's Live, and it's from 10 p.m. tonight. Please make sure that you don't miss it. Now, with 2025 just around the corner, today at GB News, we're saying thank you, and we're sending our viewers a very, very special message.
Thank you, Britain.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for subscribing.
Thank you for your support.
It's you that make us the People's Channel.
As we reflect on our journey so far, we're filled with immense gratitude.
You mean the world to us. We couldn't have reached this point without you.
As a very special thank you, we are giving you the chance to win one of 50 GB News thank you boxes. They're worth £50 each.
For full terms and conditions, and to enter, just go to gbnews.com/thank you.
And may I please add my end-of-year thank you to you. It's been a wonderful year. Thanks for all your kind comments. Thanks to all those people that come and say hello when they see me out and about, on trains, on buses, in pubs, quite a lot of that. Shaking my hand, having selfies, saying thanks, and talking about politics to me. It's wonderful to meet you all, wonderful to say hello. Please keep watching us here at GB News, and thanks for all of your comments. A special thank you from me. Now, plenty more to come in the show, but first, here's your latest news headlines, and it's Sophia Wednesday.
Martin, thank you. Your headlines at 5:30. Japan, Australia and New Zealand have all been the first to ring in the new year with celebrations and fireworks displays. They were followed by Hong Kong and Taiwan, who in the last few hours celebrated the new year. And Thailand and Vietnam and Indonesia have rung in the new year in the past hour. But as the world welcomes in 2025, severe weather is set to hamper Britain's New Year's events. The Edinburgh Hogmanay celebrations have been cancelled due to severe weather conditions. Heavy rain and high winds are causing disruption in much of the country tonight, with blizzards forecast in Scotland and widespread travel disruption. Fireworks displays in Newcastle, Blackpool and North Yorkshire have all been cancelled. Meanwhile, City Hall in London says they're monitoring weather conditions ahead of the capital's annual New Year's Eve fireworks display this evening. Former England football manager Gareth Southgate, actor Stephen Fry and gardener Alan Titchmarsh are some of the famous names included on this year's New Year's honours list. The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, has also been knighted, sparking fury among some amid his controversial ULEZ scheme and London's spiralling crime rate. Sir Keir Starmer has been accused of rewarding failure as knife crime has increased in the capital by 50% since Khan took office in 2016. The Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp said Londoners would be furious. Meanwhile, the newly appointed Sir Sadiq said he was truly humbled to receive the honour. Nigel Farage has delivered his New Year's message from Blenheim Palace, the birthplace of Sir Winston Churchill. In his message to the nation, he speaks about why he jumped back into the political arena, becoming a grandfather, the optimism he has for the country and his belief that Reform UK can make Britain great again. But he fears we've been let down by previous governments for decades.
You know, the fish rots from the head down. We have been appallingly led in this country now for several decades. We are in societal decline. We are in economic decline. Most people are getting poorer with every year that passes. We're losing any sense of national identity. And we're actually teaching kids at school that people like Winston Churchill, born in this palace, are bad people and that our country's history is something to be ashamed of.
And Johnny Walker has died at the age of 79. It comes 2 months after the radio presenter called time on his 58-year career because of ill health. DJ Bob Harris, who took over BBC Radio 2's Sound of the 70s show after Walker's retirement, announced his former colleague's death live on the station today. Tim Davie, the BBC's Director General, said, "We are deeply saddened by the news of Johnny's passing, and our thoughts are with his family and friends, as well as everyone at Radio 2. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head towards the new year, it's going to be unsettled, outbreaks of rain and snow, very windy at times with multiple Met Office warnings enforced for the New Year's period. And it's all because we've got low pressure generally dominating the weather, bringing in some frontal systems, a squeeze in the isobars, so outbreaks of rain, some windy weather and also some snow, particularly across the far north of Scotland, particularly the Shetland Islands, where there is a Met Office warning enforced for outbreaks of snow. This becoming more prominent towards the early hours of the morning with a mix of some showers too. And then across parts of Wales, northern parts of England, some heavy and quite persistent outbreaks of rain at times too. And largely dry to the far south, but plenty of cloud. And we will start to see winds pick up during the early hours of the morning too. So to start the new year then, across Scotland, unsettled, plenty of showers feeding through, quite blustery at times, and also a risk of snow and ice, mainly across high ground, but also to lower levels too. We may start to see some brighter weather across Northern Ireland, but can't rule out some showers, particularly around coasts, and a very wet start across Wales, northern and central parts of England. This rain quite heavy and persistent at times still. We'll see the driest of the weather across the far southeast, but eventually these outbreaks of rain will slowly sink towards the southeast also. And very strong blustery winds, particularly around coast, but even inland areas seeing some quite gusty weather. And we may start to see some sunshine build through the day to the north of these outbreaks of rain, but plenty of showers once again falling as snow at times and feeling very cold here too. Slightly milder to the south, but still a chillier day on offer compared to what it was today. Into the evening, we'll eventually say goodbye to these outbreaks of rain. We'll see plenty of clear spells, but also wintry showers and likely to wake up to quite a widespread sharp frost too. And into the outlook, it remains cold. There'll be more sunshine around, yes, but a risk of snow showers and a risk of frost and ice too.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm Gary King at Rainham in London. The new road currently closed in both directions. Long delays after a building fire at a warehouse between Marshway and the A125 at Dover's Corner. In Berkshire, the eastbound M4, the exit slip road at junction 11 at Reading is partly blocked due to an obstruction on the road. In Cheshire, the northbound M6, 2 lanes closed, long delays after an overturned lorry between junction 17 at Sandbach and 18 at Holmes Chapel. Dumfries and Galloway, the southbound A74M is partly blocked after an accident just near the junction 16 at Johnston Bridge. And on the trains, ScotRail are reporting buses instead of trains on their services between Inverness and Perth due to poor weather conditions. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
They redid the
Welcome back. Your time is 5:37 on this wonderful New Year's Eve, and you're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. I'm sure that many of you are putting the final touches on your New Year's party. But how do you make your party really stand out from the crowd? How do you make sure that your guests walk away remembering your party? Well, you're in luck, because we're joined now by the party planner and the etiquette expert, Laura Windsor. Laura, welcome to the show, and a very, very happy New Year's Eve to you. So how do you make your party stand out? I guess if you want people to remember your party, don't give them about 4 bottles of champagne.
Yes, well, I've brought the champagne without the alcohol. But anyway, it's best not to drink too much, definitely, at any party. You want to be remembered for your panache and charm rather than being catatonic, propped up somewhere in the corner of the broom cupboard, for example.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you've been to 1 or 2 of my parties. But on a serious point, people do get really, really stressed about the planning, about the cost, around things like dietary needs and all the rest of it. What's the simplest way to make sure you please your crowd?
Well, when it comes to dietary requirements, it's always better to talk to the people in advance. If you do have them, then tell them about a few weeks before. And for example, if you're vegetarian and then you decide to be vegan one week over the Christmas holidays or the New Year holidays, just try and be more flexible and go back to being a vegetarian for that time. But New Year's Eve is all about having fun and without embarrassing people or making them feel uncomfortable. So that is what you need to keep in mind when you go to someone's house.
Now, Laura, could I ask the thorny question about the New Year's Eve kiss? Because I noticed that mistletoe is now basically absolutely rare to the point of non-existence. I think I saw 1 sprig of mistletoe in 1 pub in Nottingham over the entire period. A lot of people are worried about making an inadvertent lunge at midnight. Is the New Year's Eve kiss now strictly off the table? Is it verboten?
Absolutely not. It's what Christmas and New Year's is all about. Giving that kiss. And as Brits, we're quite used to the continental way of just kissing people on the cheek just to say hello. So obviously, if you don't want to be kissed, make some kind of gesture so that someone knows that they better not get anywhere near you. But kissing, it's love, it's enjoyment, it's positive. So why not?
Yeah, I mean, you might want to pack a taser if you start
exactly.
kind of...
Exactly. Pack one of those, show it around so that people are reminded, and that's it, really. Keep away when it comes to midnight.
What's the kind of best sort of drinks? I mean, you want to see the new year in with some fizz, right? People like a bit of fizz, but can be quite expensive. Is it best to go for like a supermarket Prosecco rather than an upmarket champagne, save a few quid? Can they taste the difference?
It depends. I can taste the difference. I'm sure you can, Martin. But once you've had one glass or two, I don't think it really matters, does it? You completely forget what champagne or Prosecco tastes like.
And what about if you kind of buy one bottle of expensive stuff and then basically the rest aren't so expensive? Not that I've done this before. And you go around giving them the cheap stuff, but they think it's I mean, decanting it in is what I'm saying, you know, to be a real cheapskate like me.
Well, it depends on your budget, doesn't it? If you can't afford champagne, then just go for the Prosecco or Spumante. There are definitely tons of different spumantes around. Some are even better than champagne. And there are some Proseccos that are very, very, very good. So it's just a matter of seeking them out.
Now, Laura, there was a survey out before Christmas talking about things that you're not meant to talk about anymore. And unfortunately, they involve a lot of my favourite hobbies. You're not allowed to talk, apparently, about climate change. You're not allowed to talk about immigration. Definitely don't mention Brexit. Don't go anywhere near all these political issues because you might offend somebody. So what's left? What are you meant to talk about?
There's tons of things you can talk about, especially on New Year's Eve. What are you going to do afterwards? Have you got any holidays planned? What are your goals? Are you going to start going to the gym, perhaps? Maybe that's just a little bit too sensitive. But there are so many things to talk about. What film are you going to watch? Sports, just so long as it's not too contentious, hobbies, you name it. There's always something to talk about. And I think a lot of people are worried because they're always worried about what they're going to say, rather than just go with the flow and see how the conversation goes, really.
Yeah, and basically what happens is you end up drinking too much, you end up eating too much inappropriate food, you get heartburn, you start dancing, you start dancing to Dancing Queen ABBA, and then you go for that lunge, you go in for the smacker. I'm doing this all wrong, aren't I?
No, but that's how it goes, basically, isn't it? It can become quite embarrassing. Remember, you don't want to kill your social reputation, so hang in there. Drink water. Every glass of alcohol you drink a glass of water, and you should be able to balance it out and be charming at the end of it.
Yeah, Laura Windsor, that is sound, sensible advice. And because of that, I'll probably ignore all of it later on. Thank you very much. Superb. Thank you. And a very, very happy New Year and a peaceful, prosperous New Year to you. That's the party planner and the etiquette expert, Laura Windsor. Thank you very, very much indeed. Now, moving on, if you're in search of some winter sun, who can blame you with this weather we got here in Blighty? Well, here is the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Here's your GB News winter sun forecast for the first day of 2025, and there will actually be some decent sunshine around, and with that, temperatures for some, including Madeira, actually a few degrees above average. A different story for Barcelona, largely dry, but temperatures, if anything, slightly below what you'd expect, but plenty of dry weather as we head further east, and for places such as Santorini here as well. Temperatures a little bit on the mild side. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Now up next, farmers all over the country will be burning beacons, bonfires, all together in unison to protest against the government's inheritance tax raid. That's next with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Millions are struggling to stay warm with the wet weather, the cost of living and, of course, cuts to fuel payments.
Yes, winter is fast approaching, so it's crucial to find cost-effective ways to save on your energy expenses whilst staying reasonably warm.
So joining us to provide advice on heating your home, or at least staying warm somehow, is one of the leading voices on lowering energy bills, Nick Miles. And you are very welcome in here this morning. I mean, a lot of people say, well, in the olden days, you just used to put on an extra jumper. But actually, it's more serious than that, isn't it? What is the best way, the most cost-effective way to keep your home warm?
Some of the bigger things is we need to do more things on insulating our properties, but actually sometimes, it can be simple things like turning down a thermostat. Those that have got the luxury of being able to afford energy bills and keep their homes on the thermostat a bit too high. If you just turn it down by 1 simple degree, as long as you keep it between 18 and 22 degrees, can save up to 5 to 10% of your energy bill. So that's a kind of a very simple way of doing things, but it can be other little tips and tricks you can do as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I always get it when people say about this, but like 18 degrees is not warm for a house.
No, and it's twofold actually. It's that kind of relative temperature, but also it's the kind of drafts and things you have in your house. So it's the comfort factor. So what we have a lot of old properties in our country. You've got some 8 million hard-to-treat properties built before World War II that have got poor insulation, but also very, very drafty. So it's the temperature and it's the kind of the draftiness of them that kind of keeps us uncomfortable.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 5:48 on this magnificent New Year's Eve, and you're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, it may be New Year's Eve, but Britain's farmers are not giving up their fight against the inheritance tax raid by the Labour government, because tonight, farmers all over the country, as you can see on your screens now, will be lighting beacons, bonfires, showing solidarity with each other. And so far, my sources tell me, 2,430 farmers across the UK, you can see that right from the tip of Scotland right down to Land's End, have signed up. They've pledged to take part, and that number is expected to grow. You can see that map on your screen now of the farms that will be taking place, and I spoke yesterday to the organisers of this. That's Ollie Harrison, Clive Bailey and Martin Williams, who of course have been key voices in what has become something of a rural revolt since that inheritance tax raid. Let's chat about that now in the studio by my wonderful, the final blast with my New Year's Eve panel. That's political commentator Chloe Dobbs and the trade unionist Andy Twelves. Guys, welcome back to the show. Let's start with you this time, Chloe. So it is a display of solidarity. It won't please Ed Miliband. Over 2,500 bonfires being lit. He'll be getting his fire extinguisher out, no doubt, about the carbon.
Surprised he's letting Sadiq Khan go ahead with London fireworks this year. Thought they'd all be banned.
Well, don't give him any ideas. It is a show of solidarity, and the point is, will it have any impact? Or do you think the Labour Party now, to use a pun, they're just going to plough the same old furrow and dig in against the farmers?
I sadly think that them doing this, as amazing as it is, I don't think it will have any impact, because it seems like Keir Starmer has got his ears closed. He doesn't want to listen. Barely even acknowledged whatsoever any of the farmers' protests that took place on Whitehall. There were a huge number of people who normally work 7 days a week. It was very difficult for them to take the time out to come. Barely even acknowledged their grievances. And look, they just need to give it up, because the calculations we're seeing suggest that this is not actually going to raise that much money for the Treasury, but it's going to be incredibly politically damaging for the Labour Party.
OK, let's just get a quick video on the screen now. This is a time-lapse video sent to us, and this is from Ollie Harrison. Ollie is one of the farmers who's building... This is his beacon being put together. You can see there he's building a metal frame, and that then gets transported outside and stuffed full of the pyre. Of course, farmers are very resourceful individuals. And this is one, as I said, of around about 2,500 beacons that are going across. We'll watch that continuing on now and bring in Andy 12s. Andy, you seem quite cynical about this. You think it's all window dressing, but really won't achieve anything. And more to the point, Labour Party won't change. Why not? Why won't the Labour Party sit down with these guys and negotiate? Because they want to talk to Keir Starmer. They keep telling me all the time.
I think, just first off, before I start, I mean, what an incredible piece of handiwork that is. I've been actually amazed watching this video, them putting together this beacon. But yeah, I don't think this protest is, well, it's not a protest really, is it? It's how many 2,000 farmers putting together a bit of fire on their land. It's not going to do anything. It's not going to blockade anything.
Well, if you can see here, they're using the heavy machinery as a huge, long steel pipe with a beacon, a steel frame on top for those listening on radio. That's going to be packed with combustible materials.
I mean, what does it do, though?
Well, it's going to be lit. So the point is it can be seen across the rural community. And the point they're hoping is that people will see this and get the message. And the message is they want to sit down with the government and talk about doing some kind of compromise on this inheritance tax rate. They all agree that the richest landowners should pay, but their point is the £1 million limit is too low, because if you start including things like machinery, animals, and just the stuff they have in their yards, they breach £1 million without even talking about a scrap of land.
I mean, this campaign's fronted by, well, not this beacon campaign, but the general campaign. Many see it fronted by Jeremy Clarkson, a man who bought a farm to dodge inheritance tax. So I imagine that he is quite annoyed about it. But I mean, I've been involved in union politics for a decent amount of time. If anyone can attest, you can't just demand sitting down with the government. You do have to, show some kind of action. The NFU is the recognised body.
You go on strike.
Well, the NFU is the recognised body for farmers. The government are engaging with the NFU. But me as a single member of a trade union, I can't demand to talk to the government. I go through my rep. I go through my union.
Are they at present playing on Queensberry rules, being too polite? And you mentioned getting a result. No, is the next step, Chloe, for stock farmers to go on strike, for there to be food shortages? And I think the public might support that.
I think that they might. I think the public are furious, and we're now hearing rumours that they are thinking of parking tractors outside of supermarket supply centres and whatnot to try and cause absolute chaos. I don't know how many of them will be able to afford to go on strike for long periods of time because of the loss of money. They're very cash-poor farmers. This is why this policy is affecting them so badly. Just going back to Andy's point there about rich landowners, Jeremy Clarkson himself, in his article that he wrote about this tax, said the point of this policy was to tax all of those people that have bought a load of land in the countryside so that they can pass it down inheritance-free. And that's fine, but at least change the policy and amend it so that people who are genuine farmers, not just sitting there with empty fields to hand down, do not get taxed by this policy. It's going to destroy our food security and destroy our farming.
OK, guys, we have to leave it there. We've simply ran out of time. Andy 12s and Chloe Dobbs, thank you very much for joining us. Have a fantastic New Year's Eve. And that's all from me for today. But don't worry, up next, it's Jubes & Co. with Dawn Neeson, the fierce debate show in town. Here's my little drink. Guess what? It's not coffee. Have a fantastic New Year's Eve. Now it's time for your weather. And here's Honor Krizik. Cheers, and I'll see you in 2025.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head towards the new year, it's going to be unsettled, outbreaks of rain and snow, very windy at times with multiple Met Office warnings enforced for the New Year's period. And it's all because we've got low pressure generally dominating the weather, bringing in some frontal systems, a squeeze in the isobars, so outbreaks of rain, some windy weather and also some snow, particularly across the far north of Scotland, particularly the Shetland Islands, where there is a Met Office warning enforced for outbreaks of snow. This becoming more prominent towards the early hours of the morning with a mix of some showers too. And then across parts of Wales, northern parts of England, some heavy and quite persistent outbreaks of rain at times too. And largely dry to the far south, but plenty of cloud. And we will start to see winds pick up during the early hours of the morning too. So to start the new year then, across Scotland, unsettled, plenty of showers feeding through, quite blustery at times, and also a risk of snow and ice, mainly across high ground, but also to lower levels too. We may start to see some brighter weather across Northern Ireland, but can't rule out some showers, particularly around coasts, and a very wet start across Wales, northern and central parts of England. This rain quite heavy and persistent at times still. We'll see the driest of the weather across the far southeast, but eventually these outbreaks of rain will slowly sink towards the southeast also, and very strong blustery winds, particularly around coast, but even inland areas seeing some quite gusty weather. And we may start to see some sunshine build through the day to the north of these outbreaks of rain, but plenty of showers once again falling as snow at times, and feeling very cold here too. Slightly milder to the south, but still a chillier day